Hey guys, how are y'all doing? Today we're going to start recapping the manhwa, Ashtarte. A beautiful story about a young boy and a young girl taking their fates into their own hands, not letting a prophecy define them. I really like this one. I hope you do too. If you like this sort of content, please remember to like and subscribe. It's a huge help for us, and it allows us to be able to post more videos. Without further ado, let's jump right into the story. Young and sweet Ashtarte Firenze, princess of the Firenze Empire, is exploring a beautiful evergreen garden with her attendant, Loena. Loena explains that the plants there are so green because Prince Miran, Ashtarte's older brother, used magic so that the garden would bloom during winter. Ashtarte is having a wonderful time as she rarely gets to leave her palace because of a prophecy the high priest foretold, saying that on the night of the blood moon, two princesses would be born, one bearer of light and the other bearer of darkness. Just as the priest announced, on the night of the blood moon, two princesses were born. With silver hair like the rest of the royal family, Amaryllis Firenze was born from a commoner mother. On the other hand, Ashtarte was born with pure royal blood, but with hair as dark as night, a color never seen before in the imperial family. Because of that, Ashtarte was interpreted to be the bringer of darkness, while Amaryllis, the light princess, causing the royal family to banish Ashtarte following her mother's death, secluding her to a separate castle with only one maid, Loena. Loena is furious by this, as she knows Ashtarte to be the most loving and sweet child, who even helps around the palace doing chores. In any case, after a while in the garden, Ashtarte becomes hungry. So Ashen Belga, captain of the 5th Division of the Imperial Guard, escorts her around the garden while Loena fetches her some food. That's when they run into Prince Miran and Princess Amaryllis, nicknamed Rilly. The only interaction Ashtarte has had with the prince is when he told her to never call him brother, that only Rilly could. Poor Ashtarte was heartbroken by that. Now, Rilly is inviting her to have tea with them. You would have expected the Princess of Light to be at least as sweet as Ashtarte, right? Well, wrong. She turns out to be an egocentric, conniving bitch who, as soon as Ashtarte sits down, demands to give her a hairpin she's wearing. Ashtarte doesn't want to, as it was gifted to her by Loena, but the manipulative bitch insists, telling her that if she doesn't, it would look like she hates her. What the hell? Ashtarte refuses to give it to her, sending Rilly into a fit of rage. She breaks cups, asking Ashtarte how dare she say no to her, and even going as far as trying to take the hairpin from her by force. Spoiled much? Prince Miran stops Rilly's hand, leaving her even more shocked as he had never opposed her before. With crocodile tears running down her cheeks, she plays the offended card and storms off from the tea table. Miran orders Ashen to go after her, leaving him and Ashtarte alone. It's kind of awkward between them, as you would guess, but Miran tries breaking the ice by asking Ashtarte if the dress she's wearing is new. Ashtarte calls him brother by mistake, angering him. Ashtarte gathers up the courage to ask him why she can't call him that, if she's as much a sister to him as Rilly is. But Miran is cruel, telling her that he would pick Rilly over her in a heartbeat, and warning her that he won't stop Rilly from hurting her again. Miran storms off as well, leaving a crying Ashtarte behind. She's devastated. All she ever wanted was to be loved by her family, but now she realizes that will never be possible. She then finds Miran's magic book lying on the table. She opens it and is surprised to discover that she can actually understand the magical language it's written in. While skipping through the pages, she finds a magic spell that allows one to discover their destiny, so she reads it, which causes her to teleport into a dark office where a chained boy is looking at her, warning her to go away if she wants to live. It's been a few days since Ashtarte landed in that room and met the handsome, purple-eyed Rion. He seemed a bit scary at first with the whole "I'ma kill you if you don't leave" speech. Since then, Rion has showed himself to be a true gentleman, giving Ashtarte food and letting her stay there until she figures out how to return home. He's even a bit of a teaser, asking Ashtarte if landing there because of a destiny spell is some sort of pickup line or something. I wish. He even told her the meaning of her name, Ashtarte, who was an ancient goddess of war and love. He's really curious about her, thinking she may be a noblewoman from her manners, but not being quite convinced as her hands are pretty worn out. She even told him boastfully that one of her talents is to go for a week without food. Poor girl doesn't even realize that's wrong on so many levels. He also wonders about her magical talent, as she's been able to read up to 500 spells in just a few days. Ashtarte also wonders about him, noticing he's able to give her unlimited high-quality food, but is also chained up and alone in a room. She asks him if he lives with his family, and with a deviant smile, he tells her he's not sure. He asks her the same thing, but as we know, it's the same for Ashtarte. After some time, Ashtarte finally finds a spell that can teleport her wherever she wants. As she starts saying the spell, a strong wind begins to blow inside the room, causing a bookshelf to almost fall on top of Ashtarte. Luckily, Rion was fast enough to shield her from it. Ashtarte feels extremely guilty about this, apologizing to Rion, who tells her to stop apologizing as she couldn't have helped the bookshelf from falling. Oh my god, they're so cute together. After Rion shields her, Ashtarte asks him if he's worried about her, as his scolding reminded her of Loena. He apologizes, telling her she reminds him of someone too. With that failed attempt, Ashtarte reached her daily quota of 50 spells. Rion imposed it on her, telling her that her mana becomes really weak after 50 spells, and it's best for her to rest and recover to try again the next day. Rion's pretty amazed at her magic skills, as her reading that book means that she's able to naturally understand the 3 ancient languages of the kingdom, Rochek, Sensiberian, and Wayrak, which is a rarity to say the least. She doesn't even comprehend the power she wields by being able to understand them naturally, and so he warns her never to tell anyone of her magical abilities, as it may cause people to become jealous or wary of her power. He then stores the magic book in a high shelf where Ashtarte can't reach. Of course, our extra small-sized girl won't quit just like that, and later gets a staircase to be able to reach the book. Obviously, this ends up with her tipping and falling from the staircase, crying out for Loena as she does. Rion goes to her to help her tend for her bruises, asking her who Loena is. Ashtarte remembers how she first came to be with Loena, and tells him how she was the only one who stood by her side while everyone else, servants included, left her behind, wary because of the prophecy. Ashtarte fondly remembers Loena and tells Rion that she's the main reason she wants to return, so as not to make her worried. While Ashtarte sleeps, Rion is feeling guilty after knowing she has someone she adores waiting for her back home. A captain enters the room, asking Rion how much longer he'll let Ashtarte stay there. Rion's irritated by his inquiries, ordering him to go away. The captain leaves, calling Rion young master, irritating him even further, as with an ice-cold look in his eyes, he turns around to remind him that he's not the young master anymore. Back in the Magic Garden, we are shown what happened to Loena after Ashtarte's disappearance. Loena was bringing a basket full of food for Ashtarte when she ran into Ashen, running behind Princess Amaryllis and the Crown Prince Miran, who had just left Ashtarte. He was quite upset at her, as she had apparently told Ashtarte that the dresses he had gifted her had been gifted by herself. He questions Loena about it, and unable to contain her rage towards him, she replies that he never asked her to tell the princess they came from him. She had chosen to lie to her because she didn't want to give Ashtarte false hope, and even went as far as calling the prince a coward for being sporadically kind to Ashtarte, only to then crush her heart by telling her never to call him brother and ignoring her. Are you looking for a death wish, girl? It also seems that Ashtarte had asked the prince a few days ago to gift Loena a new dress, and he agreed to do so to return the favor of Ashtarte saving his life. Loena then goes on to ask the prince to never address Ashtarte again, to ignore her as he had done for 10 years and not show her any affection, least of all, hope. With this, the prince has had enough of Loena's insubordination, telling her in a harsh tone that she's gone too far. Everyone had thought of Riley as a bearer of light and Ashtarte as the star of darkness because of the hair colors. Kinda dumb, but oh well. Even her 2 brothers, Miran and Noah, Mirigan's younger brother, Because of that, they've never seen their sister for 10 years. But it seems that Mirigan's idea of her began to shift lightly after she apparently saved his life, after what seems to be an assassination attempt. Noah came to Mirigan's study to tell him that he tried following the perpetrator but had no luck. And coincidentally, here's when Mirigan made the request for the dresses for Luena, and even added dresses for Ashtarte, leaving him quite surprised at his brother's gesture. Back in the garden, Mirigan seems to forgive Luena's life, telling her that it's the first and last act of mercy he'll have towards Ashtarte, given that he noticed how dear Luena had become to her. He then leaves. Snapping out of her shock, Luena grabbed Ashen and asked him where Ashtarte was. He told her to go look in the gazebo, but we all know she had already disappeared by that point. Returning to Ashtarte, Rion is taking her on a walk through some gardens outside his palace, full of evergreen lilies of the valley, just like the ones in her hairpin. He takes her to a familiar-looking gazebo, giving her some of her favorite sandwiches. Ashtarte wonders about his shackles. I mean, he's able to roam around freely in his castle and is served like a nobleman, so he's obviously not imprisoned. She tells him that she's not afraid of him and that she'll help him take them off if he wants, telling him there must be a magic spell in her book that'll do the trick. He then grabs her wrist and asks her if she thought he would fall for that. Surprised, Ashtarte asks him why she would try to fool him, to which he replies that he figures she's just trying to get her magic book back, making her groan in frustration. He tells her that he doesn't have any plans of taking them off soon, telling her that taking them off would make some people extremely anxious. Ashtarte asks him if he plans on wearing those shackles forever, and he tells her it might be possible, which really upsets her and causes her to shout at him, telling him he can't live forever in hiding. It's then that we are told that in fact, Ashtarte remembers everything from her past life and is actually a reincarnation of a servant who was bought by a viscount to entertain his children. They were cruel, harming her physically for amusement, and even went as far as killing her by poisoning her food. Before dying, she wished to be reborn into a loving family, and was actually reborn as Ashtarte, despised by her blood but loved and cherished by Luena. Snapping back to reality, she apologizes to Rion for raising her voice, and asks him if he likes lilies of the valley. With a cold look, he tells her his family liked them, bearing a bitter smile. Back in the Imperial Palace, some rumors about Ashtarte started to go around because Princess Amaryllis told the Emperor that Ashtarte had refused to give her her hairpin, insinuating she had been mean to her. This caused rumors about the prophecy starting to go around the palace. Later on, Ashen wonders if Luena ever made it back safely with Ashtarte from the gardens. His thoughts are interrupted by a desperately worried Luena, who suddenly barges in and begs for his help, as she can't find the princess anywhere. Sobbing, Luena tries to explain to Ashen that the princess is missing since the incident in the garden. He remembers the first time he saw the princess, the day after she had saved Prince Mirigan's life by tending to his life-threatening wounds. Luena had taken her to the knight's training place to demand answers as they thought an intruder had broken into her palace the night before. Remember, Ashtarte had never met her brother Mirigan before, and so she didn't recognize him. That's when Mirigan entered the room as well, thanking Ashtarte for saving him and asking her what she wanted as a reward. That's when she originally asked for Luena's dresses, and Ashen had noticed how everyone seemed to change after meeting the princess, even Prince Mirigan. Ashen strongly hugs Luena so as to calm her down. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really shipping them right now. And after she's calm, leaves to go search for the princess. In the Imperial Castle, some maids are interrupted by Prince Noah while they are looking for the most talented craftsman to make a hairpin for Amaryllis. It seems that after bad-mouthing her half-sister, she had asked her father, the Emperor, for a hairpin just like Ashtarte's. The Emperor, of course, then sent out a nationwide search for the finest hairpin for Riley. Noah walks past them, who then continue their chattering, not realizing he can still hear them. They're talking about the rumors that have been spreading about Riley's encounter with Ashtarte. Word's gone out that the prophecy has already begun, as it is said that Ashtarte had been cruel to Riley, even trying to hit her so as not to give her her hairpin. We know that's not true, though, and it seems Noah also questions its truth, as he had met Ashtarte before and doesn't think she's the kind of person who'd do that. They met once before while he was lounging outside the palace, while Ashtarte was waiting outside the kitchen for Luena to return with food. He overheard her talking to herself, saying that nobody loved her because she was all dirty. Curious, Noah approached her and kindly gave her his royal cape to wear. He was surprised by Ashtarte's reaction, who said that the cape was too lavish for her. Before leaving, he told her that he had hoped that they would meet again. He's so sweet. In Mirigan's study, he is woken up by a nightmare of his own late mother whipping him, telling him he had to become merciless in order to be the best emperor in history. This had happened a lot in his childhood, before she died from a sudden illness, and clearly left him traumatized. After her death, he wasn't too interested in the prophecy, but after insistence on behalf of the high priest, he met Riley, and after seeing her, he really hoped she'd be the light the prophecy claimed her to be. However, now he's starting to mix up the images of Riley and Ashtarte in his head. Ashen barges into his office to inform him of Ashtarte's disappearance, telling him she's been missing since after he saw her at the garden. Mirigan's heart throbs. Seems he's feeling a bit guilty and worried about Ashtarte, which really upsets him as he thought he hated her. Mirigan tells Ashen since Ashtarte's been missing for a short time now, he'll be able to use his magic to track her down, but in the meantime, to search the whole of Firenze and not to tell anyone else about her disappearance. After Ashen leaves, Mirigan searches for his magic book in order to track Ashtarte down, but is unable to find it, thinking he simply misplaced it. Little does he know that his book is actually with Ashtarte at that very moment. Going back to Ashtarte, seems she finally found a spell that might work to make her go back. It's supposed to let you teleport to someone who misses you. Rion's knowledge of magic is kind of surprising, as he's amazed at finding out Sensiberia's magic included that category of spells. It's explained that the Sensiberian language of magic is a supplementary language that's used in the temple, usually used to create force fields, give blessings, or heal. Anyhow, Rion was about to return the hairpin he took from Ashtarte without her knowledge to her, right when she tells him she found the spell. He hesitates then, hiding the pin again. Ashtarte uses the spell, thinking of Luena, and is able to open a magical gate to her. However, right when she's about to cross it, Rion hugs her from behind, stopping her from going any further. He tells her it's not safe and that something could happen to her. But we all know why he actually tries to stop her, right? Ashtarte struggles against him, being able to free herself right as the magical door is closing. Nonetheless, it seems to be too late, as the magic starts to break down in front of her. Ashtarte is really worn out. It seems that breaking the magic of a spell mid-cast can have a recoil effect on the caster. Rion knew that, and even so interrupted her spell. He then picks up her sleeping body and tells her that he wasn't ready to give her up just yet. However, we see that he said that on purpose, just to ask Captain Kylos Enkavan, captain of his knightage, if saying that would convince him that he would not harm Ashtarte. The captain seems to be highly worried, and Rion questions him if he's worried about her or about him, asking him if he's afraid he'll go on a mad rampage again. It seems it's happened to him before, even giving him the nickname, the Slayer of Elframon. The captain just tells him that the lady has to go back home, as she's not from that country. Back in the Imperial Palace, Luena wakes up with a jolt. She actually heard Ashtarte calling out to her, but woke up too late. She breaks down again, blaming herself for Ashtarte's disappearance and feeling guilty as she promised a lady, probably the late Empress and Ashtarte's mother, that she would look after her. She then hears a knock at the door. She hurriedly goes to open it, hoping it's Ashtarte, but finds it's Ashen. She drills him for new information regarding Ashtarte, but is surprised when she sees Prince Mirigan appear from behind Ashen, wanting to ask Luena questions about the missing princess. Luena asks Mirigan what he's doing in the Empress Palace, residence of Ashtarte, as the High Priest had ordered him never to set foot there. It seems the High Priest has a lot of influence and power in the Empire, which grew a lot after his prophecy when the princesses were first born. However, Mirigan has already been there once. That time Ashtarte saved his life, and he feels everything started to go wrong since then. The day Mirigan was attacked, the High Priest came to visit him in his study. He said he had word from God, which said an attacker would threaten Amaryllis' life that day, and so he commanded Miran to protect the light of the Empire. Miran asked him why he had put such a responsibility in his hands, to which the High Priest replied that it's because he's the most powerful sorcerer in the Empire. Miran doesn't think he is, though, as he knows his younger brother Noah to have more power and talent than him. The High Priest also told Miran the princess was waiting to have tea with him. Miran went looking for Riley, and just in time it seems. He found an intruder breaking into the palace and trying to kill Riley with a sword. Miran interceded just in time, but the intruder recognized Miran and said he knows he's skilled at road check offensive magic, then telling him he's learned a new spell himself. Miran is wary, as using magic without a protective shield could harm Riley and the maids. The intruder then casts the spell, and Miran is able to form a shield around Riley and the maids. Miran was badly wounded by the intruder's spell. It seems the intruder was too, as his spell hadn't been carried out properly because it wasn't translated correctly. Miran was aghast, as he had never heard of that language before. The intruder had used a Wayrak spell, a language Miran can't read. So if the intruder is able to master the spell, he fears he won't be able to protect Riley. And so he went chasing after the escaping attacker, hoping to catch him and extract information from him. However, he blacks out and wakes up again at the Empress's palace, with the sleeping Ashtarte hugging his arm. How can you not love her? She's so cute! It was his first time meeting her, and he couldn't contain himself and almost caressed her head. However, he stopped himself, as images of his torturous mother commanding him to be merciless invaded his mind. So he just left her there sleeping on the floor. He figured he'd never see her again, but he did the other day at the Nightage. And everything started to change since then. Luena lets them come in, and both Miran and Ashen are appalled at their living conditions, with the castle literally crumbling down. Luena explains that they didn't have enough funding to fix it. She's tried asking the palace for money, but she's never heard back from them. Miran feels a sting in his heart, probably because of pity and guilt. Luena then takes them to Ashtarte's room, also pretty run down, which appalls Miran even further as he never knew a princess was living under such conditions. He's shown Ashtarte's wardrobe full of old and tattered dresses, and he suddenly feels embarrassed after remembering how he had shamed Ashtarte for having covered him in an old carpet when he was wounded, now realizing that was the cleanest cloth she had. He then finds Noah's cape, the one he had given Ashtarte when he met her, remember? And demands Luena to tell him where they got it from. He recognized the cloak as Noah's and wondered why he never told him he met Ashtarte. Luena then tells him she tried countless times to get Ashtarte to throw it away, but she wouldn't, deeming it the first gift she ever received from her family. She had asked her why she still loved her family, even if she had never met them. And she told Luena that she can't change her feelings. She told her that she taught her that, to love unconditionally. This girl really is pure kindness. Miran then asks Luena if the reason she lied to Ashtarte about the dresses was because of not wanting to get her hopes up, and she tells him that's right. We see now a deeply guilty Miran, thinking back on how he ignored Ashtarte for so long, even though she needed him. He confesses that he actually wanted to see Ashtarte again, and was glad to encounter her in the garden. Yet, he reacted horribly wrong when she called him brother, as it made him feel miserable for not protecting her when she needed him, as he had deep down accepted her as his sister from the first time they met. Miran is crying, consumed with guilt. Ashtarte wakes up in Rion's palace, being looked after by him as she recovers from the broken spell. She doesn't seem to remember what happened, and Rion tells her to rest for the day as she had really harmed herself. When he's about to leave, she stops him and begs him to stay with her for just a minute longer, apologizing for being so stubborn. Rion, moved, sits next to her and tells her he'll stay until she falls asleep, but angrily demands to know who told her that asking for company was a stubborn thing to do. He's getting really protective there. Ashtarte tells him that she was just scared of asking for too much, fearing that he would hate her and leave her, like her family did. Rion laments Ashtarte's pain and even offers her to stay with him in his palace longer. Ashtarte seems to be tempted by his offer, but Rion then admits that it wouldn't be fair for Luena. Ashtarte agrees, missing Luena herself, and tells Rion she wants to try to be loved by her family a bit more, that she wants to try to be loved by everyone. This sets Rion off, who tells her she doesn't need to be loved by everyone and that she also doesn't need to love everyone. He gives her back the pin, feeling bad for having kept it from her, but Ashtarte cuts him off and hugs him, thinking he had found it for her. In that hug, Rion decides to let Ashtarte go, thinking he doesn't want to cause anyone hardship again. He then tells her that, to him, she's more than deserving of love. I'm actually watering up, you guys. They are so wholesome. Once Ashtarte falls asleep, Rion stands up and leaves the magic book in her room, on a shelf close to her so she can reach it. He wishes they met a little sooner, even saying that from now on, he'll bet on his destiny with her. Ashtarte then wakes up, finding it strange not to see Rion anywhere. Finally, she remembers Rion was the one who held her back when her spell broke, so she wonders if he had blocked her on purpose. She brushes it off, still thinking the best about Rion and thinking he has no reason to want to keep her there. Clueless and naive Ashtarte. She stands up from her bed and sees the magic book, realizing she can finally reach it. Ashtarte can't reach the book, but that's not an issue anymore, as she learned a spell that allows her to move stuff. It's successful, and she finally has the book in her hands. She thinks about going back to the Imperial family, and fears Miran will scold her for having taken his book. That won't stop her from going back, though. She's determined to keep trying to find her home there and make them her family. In the Imperial castle, Ashen is reporting to Miran regarding Ashtarte's search, but it seems there's been no progress. Miran is frustrated, as the more time that passes, the more likely people are to find out Ashtarte's missing, which would raise questions about why he's looking for her in the first place. Miran asks for Noah's presence, and once in his office, tells him he wants him to do something without anyone finding out. He asks him to use his magic to find Ashtarte, confiding in him about her disappearance. Noah asks him why he's searching for her, if Miran's always ignored Ashtarte's existence, to which Miran replies that from now on, and if she'll allow it, he'll keep her close by. Aww, seems someone's heart has defrosted a bit. Noah asks him if it would cause conflict with the High Pope, who's always forbidden him from meeting her, and Miran tells him that that's why he must keep it a secret and be discreet. He then asks Noah about why he hasn't been wearing his cape recently, and is surprised to hear Noah lie. He tells him that it got dirty, so he threw it away. Furious, he asks him why he gave it to Ashtarte, and Noah asks him in return if it's in order. Seems Noah was a bit traumatized by their lunatic mother as well, who brainwashed him to always follow Miran's orders. In any case, Noah keeps his mouth shut, and just as he's leaving, tells Miran that even if he had ordered him, he wouldn't have told him. My, look at the influence Ashtarte has on people. Ashen goes to meet Luena in the Empress's palace. She's been waiting for him. Ashen thinks she looks thinner than before, worrying that she hasn't been eating properly. Luena interrupts Ashen before he can say anything about Ashtarte's search. She tells him she already knows he doesn't have any new information on her, and asks him not to go tell her every time he has to hand in a report. She confesses to him that it's getting really draining for her, as she's tired of getting her hopes up when seeing him go to the palace, just to have them crushed every time. This hurts Ashen, who only wants to help her and can't help but confess to her that he'd just returned from calling Prince Noah, and that he's sure that with his help, Miran will definitely find Ashtarte. Remember, though, that Miran had asked Ashen for his discretion. This doesn't seem to improve anything for Luena, who's deeply lost in her grief and longing for Ashtarte. She asks him if he knows the value of something precious, telling him that usually it's only found when lost. She wishes that this would finally allow Prince Miran and Ashtarte's family to realize her value, even though she's heartbroken about her disappearance, hoping that maybe she could be less resentful towards them. Looking at how affected Luena is about Ashtarte's disappearance, Ashen swears internally to never find anything precious. Ashtarte tries the spell that worked last time around, but nothing happens. She worries she ran out of mana for good with all of her previous attempts. In the meantime, Rion is having a meeting with Joshua Nohes, Prince of the Nohes Empire, He seems nice enough, insisting that he would eventually remove the chains from Rion, seeming to feel guilty about them. He even tells him he'll rinse his name, removing the nickname he's been given since the incident 2 years ago as the Butcherman of Elferman. Before the incident, he used to be called the Joker of Elferam, as he was the heir of the Elferam family, one of the 3 most powerful families of the Nohei's Empire. He discovered when young that he had a special power, and when trying to show it to his younger brother, ended up accidentally amputating his leg. He felt so guilty after that he never left his room again, even though his family made constant attempts to see him again. He feared they would hate him for what he had done, and he wouldn't be able to stand their hateful looks. It was clearly quite the contrary, and they were actually trying to reach out to him, but his guilt was too much. He even would have preferred for them to hate him from the get-go. His father told him to never show that kind of power to anyone and to never use it again. He may end up hurting more people, and the wrong people might try to use him for their advantage. However, a year after his accident with his brother, the Emperor of Nohei's called for a meeting with him. His father warned him about the Emperor, telling Rion to not budge about not using his powers ever, as the consequences may be catastrophic. Before meeting the Emperor, Rion's father asks him what he believes a good emperor is, and Rion replies that a good emperor should be a fair ruler who isn't shackled by his positions or connections. And so, they went to the meeting with the Emperor in the Imperial Palace, where he first met Joshua. There, the Emperor told him that he had heard interesting rumors about him, with a quite sinister smile on his face. It seems there's been an internal feud between the royal family and the Elferam clan, as they've been a powerful family even before the Nohei's family became emperors of that land. The Emperor tells him he's heard rumors about Rion being able to read Wayrak magic and can cast extinction spells. This utterly shocks Rion, who thought it had been kept a good secret up until then. Rion freezes in place, raising even more suspicions from the Emperor. Rion's father speaks for him, telling the Emperor that Rion is a normal human, but he doesn't buy it. To push Rion into using his magic, he then stabs his father in his leg, telling Rion that if he wants to save him, he should start using his magic. Rion is horrified, but still won't budge. Noticing this, the Emperor then shows Rion that he has taken his mother and his younger brother as well, and the Crown Prince William, Joshua's older brother, uses magic to cast a guillotine that kills them both, right in front of Rion. The Emperor then stabs Rion's father in the heart, and Rion can't take it anymore. He casts a Wayrak spell, causing 2 magical swords to almost kill the Emperor and the Crown Prince, all while young Joshua was hiding, in fear of his own family, behind a column. The Emperor marvels when seeing Rion's power, already thinking of how he can use him to conquer Firenze and the whole continent. With his dying breath, Rion's father asks him not to use his magic for killing people, ever, and tells him not to cry. He then makes him promise to stay alive and to show him how the great emperor he had spoken about rules over Nohei's. After that, Rion was ordered to use those chains and to take the blame for the death of his family if he wanted to elude charges for treason. Now, Rion asks Joshua how he believes a good emperor should be, and surprisingly, he gives the same answer Rion gave his father back then. Rion remembers Ashtarte's words, imploring him to not live in hiding, and his father's words as well, and tells Joshua he doesn't intend to live in hiding any longer. A strong sound is heard from the room upstairs where Rion and Joshua are, and Rion feels the magic in the house slowly dissipating. He's glad to see Ashtarte was finally able to make the spell to take her home work. And he just tells Joshua that the sound probably came from something falling. Ashtarte appears in a room she doesn't recognize and finds someone sleeping on the bed. She still thinks it's Loena, so she approaches the sleeping figure and tries reaching for it when suddenly, a male hand appears and grabs her wrist. It seems to be the Emperor, Ashtarte's father, and he demands to know who she is. After seeing her honey-colored eyes, the Emperor mistakes her for Rebecca, his late wife and Ashtarte's mother. However, Ashtarte quickly clears up his confusion, telling him she's not her mother. Now realizing he's before his daughter, he stands up and tries to reach out for her, but Ashtarte is terrified of him, fearing he may punish her or harm her. So she quickly uses the spell again and is able to open a portal to Luena. Shocked by the sudden gusts of wind from Ashtarte's magic, the Emperor grabs his sword, scaring poor Ashtarte even more. She walks away from him, but he keeps trying to reach her, asking her to wait a minute. She's finally able to cross the portal, leaving a confused Emperor behind. Ashtarte finally lands with Luena, who at first can't believe her eyes and thinks she's dreaming. When she realizes it's reality, she rushes to hug Ashtarte tightly, both of them breaking down and crying on each other's shoulders. Ashtarte notices Luena is thinner than before, and Luena, amidst sobs, begs Ashtarte to never leave her again. Ashtarte tells her she won't, also admitting she missed her horribly. Later on, Ashtarte tells Luena how she disappeared and reappeared again, and tells her about her newfound magical abilities. Luena is extremely surprised, as it's very rare for someone to be so proficient in ancient languages, even more so considering the lack of formal education Ashtarte received. She then makes Ashtarte promise her to never tell anyone aside from her about her powers, even going as far as threatening to never make her favorite sugar milk again. How dare she? Even so, Ashtarte has already decided to never use magic again, even though she kinda misses Rion, as she fears she won't be able to go back home again. In the main Imperial castle, Miran has received news about Ashtarte's reappearance. He immediately sets off for the Empress's palace to go see her, but his aide, Kale Burmuz, is continuously trying to convince him not to go. He tells him it's too late to form a relationship with her and that he won't be able to amend the 10 years he ignored her. But really, what he fears is that the head priest finds out about Miran now meeting with Ashtarte and causing public opinion towards Miran to turn sour. Remember, the High Priest has a whole lot of power in the Empire. Even so, Miran ignores him. To Kale's misfortune, even Prince Noah shows up, wanting to join Miran in going to meet Ashtarte. Even Ashen shows up, meaning to go see the princess, and Kale can't help but join them too. Look at how influential Ashtarte is! Go, girl! Ashtarte puts on one of her old and used dresses, even in the cold weather, wanting to save the one she thinks Luena gave her for a more special occasion. She then tells Luena about Rion and how he helped her and looked after her, even telling her that he told her that she had been named after an ancient goddess. Luena agrees, telling her that while her mother Rebecca was pregnant with her, it is said that the gods came to her in a dream and told her that to grant her wish for a child, they would give her one with divine powers, and that she should name her Ashtarte. The princess is really impressed at hearing her mother dreamt with the gods, but Luena tells her that her mother actually had quite the amount of divine power herself, as she could read Siberian and had even been one of the principal candidates to become High Priestess. Ashtarte then realizes that this story must have happened before Luena came to work in the castle, so she asks her how come she knows so much about it. Before Luena can reply, all the men barge into the palace. Begrudgingly, Luena serves the guests tea while Miran asks Ashtarte where she's been the past few days. Something changed in Ashtarte, though. She notices it, and even Miran does too. Seems that what Rion told her about not having to love everyone finally sunk in her, and she feels nothing after having both her brother finally visit her, whilst she would have probably been elated before. In any case, she keeps quiet, not yet telling them about her use of magic. Suddenly, Ashtarte hears Luena call her from behind and turns around to find her bleeding from the mouth. Oh, please, don't let anything happen to Luena. Luckily for Ashtarte and us, Luena wasn't injured. She just bit her lip too hard in trying to contain her rage and frustration towards Miran. She takes advantage of that intermission to remind Ashtarte of the promise she made to her to not tell anyone, not even the princes, about her newfound magical abilities. Ashtarte returns to the conversation with Prince Miran and lies to him, telling him that the only thing she remembers is blacking out, and when she woke up again, she noticed time had gone by without her realizing. Noah becomes quite mad, questioning her calmness and asking her how she doesn't fear that the next time that happens, she could die, leaving Ashtarte quite shocked at his reaction. Noah then stands up and leaves, leaving even Miran surprised as he's never seen him express his emotions so clearly before. Kale is also worried that the more time Miran spends there, the more likely the High Priest is to find out he's been contacting Ashtarte. So he also suggests to Miran that they should head back now. Miran then stands up. Before leaving, he asks Ashtarte if she knows who he is and what relationship they have. Ashtarte, fearful that he may get mad at her again, hesitantly replies that they are family by blood. He then asks her what she should call him, being her family, utterly shocking Ashtarte. She doubts her answer, as the time she's called him brother, he'd responded extremely harshly and coldly. She decides to call him Crown Prince, as that was what he had told her to refer to him as, causing Miran to put on a saddened expression on his face and leaving Ashtarte quite baffled. Miran then leaves, defeated, realizing that he really blew it with Ashtarte, who now has no feelings of intentions of bonding with him as siblings. In the Asmodeus Great Temple, a place only the High Priest and those he allows can enter, the head maid of the Imperial Palace informs the High Priest that Miran has been meeting with Ashtarte, worried that he may find out that she has been purposely mishandling the budget for the Empress's palace. Seems like she has been putting it at an absurdly high amount, but as we know, that funding never reached the palace. The High Priest assures her he'll take care of it. He then asks about how Riley is doing, asking her to inform him if she notices any suspicious movements. This head maid seems to really believe the High Priest's objective is solely to protect Firenze from the darkness, aka Ashtarte. But honestly, I really have my doubts. After the head maid leaves, the High Priest seems to let out his frustration and anger, which he's been clearly holding in. Quite sus, in my opinion. He then remembers the Holy Festival is coming up and realizes he can use it to promote Riley's image and influence, thinking that will resolve the issue with the emerging Ashtarte. 1 week after Ashtarte's reappearance, the Emperor is holding an audience with Miran, his son. He's scolding him for having gone to the Empress's palace and meeting with Ashtarte. Miran explains his reasons, telling him that he wanted to check how truthful the prophecy was, which made Ashtarte to be pure evil. However, he tells his father that after meeting her, he realized she's nothing but a normal child, just like Riley is. The Emperor had also originally been against the prophecy, calling the High Priest insolent for having said his child Ashtarte would ruin the Empire. After the priest told him the prophecy, he was so angered at him and his arrogance that he went on to destroy nearly half the temples in Firenze. Now, after hearing Miran's testimony, he shocks everyone by asking them if Ashtarte's so ordinary, how could she have entered his room in the middle of the night? He tells them then about his random meeting with Ashtarte, describing her as a young child with golden eyes, who called Rebecca Firenze, his late wife, her mother. He then describes how she used magic he'd never seen before to disappear right in front of his eyes, and how he was informed the day following that night that Miran had gone to the Empress's palace, which of course raised his suspicions. Miran is astonished, as it's his first time finding out Ashtarte has magical abilities. In the Empress's palace, Loena's made Ashtarte beef stew for breakfast. Seems like after the princes visited them, they have never been short on food again, not needing to go to the royal kitchen to beg for leftovers and scraps. Prince Miran has been funding their food himself, leaving Loena happy that Ashtarte can finally feed right, but it's still not enough to take her resentment for them away. I mean, she's totally right. They did ignore her existence and leave her alone and starving for 10 years straight, so... It also looks like Loena also noticed Ashtarte's changed feelings for the princes, her family, as she noticed her eyes were completely emotionless when they came to visit them after her return. Ashen then appears, carrying an invitation for Ashtarte from the Emperor to dine with him, shocking both Ashtarte and Loena. Poor Ashtarte's quivering in fear, as she fears he'll want to kill her for having appeared in his room in the middle of the night that time. She tells Loena she doesn't want to go, spitting out diverse excuses that don't seem to be convincing to neither Loena nor Ashen. Loena fears she's become afraid of the outside world, while Ashen blames himself for her fear of leaving the palace, as he feels he failed to escort her properly that time in the garden. Ashen sternly tells her not to worry, even unsheathing his sword, assuring her that if anyone makes her feel uncomfortable, he'll take care of them himself. Ashtarte tries to think of a better excuse, and ends up deciding on faking a stomachache. This seems to work, but results in the Emperor sending stomach medicine to her in return. It's been 5 days since the Emperor's first invitation to Ashtarte, and he's been sending her daily invites ever since. Ashtarte's already used every illness in the book to try to get off the hook, resulting in the Emperor sending her every medicine and supplement known to Firenze, basically. The Emperor invites her again, and Ashen, already up to speed on her excuses, asks her what she wants him to tell him this time. She can't think of anything new, and just tells him she really doesn't feel like going today, nor ever. Ashen is quite distraught, asking her what should he do to get her to go outside. He clearly feels deeply guilty and blames himself for Ashtarte's uneasiness to leave her home, even though we know that's not true. Ashtarte finally realizes, dismayed, that her avoidance of the Emperor has been troubling Ashen greatly, thinking that maybe each time she declines it, it's he who has to take the responsibility and is maybe punished by the imperial family. She remembers that was usually how it went for her in her past life, always blamed for other people's mistakes. Ashen notices her shaking and, removing his glove, offers his calloused hand and reassures her that he won't let anything happen to her and that he'll protect her. So looking at how hard he's trying to get her to leave and how honest he seems, also not wanting to cause him any more trouble, Ashtarte finally takes his hand and agrees to go meet the Emperor. That's when Ashen realizes, just as Lowena had predicted, he's found what's precious to him: Ashtarte. Honestly, I can't understand how no one has realized by now that Ashtarte's the light rather than Riley. I mean, the girl completely conquers the heart of anyone she meets. Ashen escorts her to a tea table in the gardens where the Emperor is waiting for her. Ashtarte wonders why, after all of these years ignoring her and leaving her to rot in the abandoned Empress's palace, everyone in her family has suddenly become so persistent in trying to contact her. Poor girl had just made peace with her situation, and now everything is changing again. The Emperor tells her she really looks like her mother, asking her if she knows what she did to him, telling her that he's still enraged by it to this day. Ashtarte is confused, and he tells her that as soon as she realized she was pregnant with her, she left him, telling her he's convinced that she never loved him and that all she wanted was to have a royal child. Ashtarte comes to the conclusion then that her father's hate towards her was born out of his hate for her mother. However, with her newfound strength and empowerment, she faces him head on, asking him if that's the reason she had to grow up with him hating her and telling him that it wasn't her fault. This startles the Emperor, but before he can respond, an Imperial guard runs to him, reminding him that he was late to the council meeting. Before leaving, he asks her if she resents him too, but to his surprise, she tells him she used to, but not anymore. Apparently, hearing what happened between him and her mother sort of made her empathize with him. Honestly, this girl is too pure for the world. Hurt and looking quite guilty, he asks her why she doesn't resent him anymore. But before Ashtarte can reply, the guard hurries him to the meeting. Ashtarte thinks about it though, and she realizes it's because she finally realized who her true family is: Ashen and Lowena, the only people who've always and unconditionally been there for her. You go, girl. It's about time you reclaim your peace and happiness. In the council meeting, the heads of the most important noble families of Firenze are discussing the preparations for the upcoming holy festival. The Emperor informs them that Lord Isaiah Sen Siberia will be personally visiting Firenze during the festival. Lord Isaiah is the Pope's only legitimate child and his main successor, noble of the last remaining holy nation in the continent, Sen Siberia. One of the nobles present, Marquess Carlos, suggests to everyone that this time around, instead of one of the princes, Princess Amaryllis should escort him and guide him around Firenze, wanting to show him her supposed divinity. He seems to be looking for Riley and Lord Isaiah to form some sort of relationship, thinking this may bring wealth and prosperity to Firenze. Marquess Carlos upsets the Emperor by calling Riley Firenze's one and only morning star. The Emperor is ticked off by this, asking him why he calls her Firenze's only star. The Emperor, quite bothered, reminds everyone there of Ashtarte's existence. Marquess Carlos is shocked to see him mention Ashtarte, as he thought the Emperor was the first person who wanted to forget about her existence. Even so, he apologizes as he doesn't want to be on his bad side. Seems the Emperor caused quite the uproar when he took his charges as, with a just but harsh hand, he sent to kill all the corrupt and unuseful nobles in Firenze. The Emperor then tells Carlos to do as he pleases about the matter of Isaiah's guide, as long as Riley agrees, of course. In Mirigan's study, he's speaking to Noah, who's telling him of the Emperor's meeting with Ashtarte. Mirigan wonders if his father is interested in her because she looks like Rebecca, or because he's changed his mind about her in the prophecy. Seems Noah was also called by the Emperor for questioning about having gone to the Empress's palace, but he tells Mirigan he told nothing to the Emperor. Mirigan thanks him, but Noah tells him not to, as he acted on his own will, telling Mirigan he's interested in Ashtarte, but in his own way. Whatever that means. The head maid then enters Mirigan's study. She was called there by him, as he apparently got hold of the budget sheets for the Empress's palace and is questioning her about them, asking her if everything written there is true. The head maid thinks back on her encounter with the high priest, who said he would take care of the issue, but is still afraid to answer Mirigan's question, which further raises his suspicions. The maid is extremely afraid. The high priest had promised he'd take care of it, but if he lied, she'd be signing her death sentence by lying to the princes. She finally decides to trust the high priest, bowing down, and tells Mirigan there's nothing wrong with the ledger, swearing on her honor and everything. Mirigan, disappointed, tells her she's right, that he noticed the ledger was in fact so perfect that he tested her in order to be able to praise her hard work. She raises her head with a smile of relief plastered on her face. However, Mirigan's not done with her yet, as with a steely look, he warns her that the price of lying or working against the imperial family is, at least, her life. This, of course, drains all the light from the headmaid's face, who shivers in fear. She starts to leave, but turns around after a loud shattering noise was caused by Noah breaking his teacup. He apologizes, looking at the headmaid dead in the eye, and saying the teacups are so fragile nowadays. Clearly another warning to her not to do anything stupid or she'll be next. After she left, Mirigan shows himself frustrated by the outcome of their interaction. He wanted to be able to get some information from her, as the ledger raised his suspicions for being too perfect, showing signs of having been tampered with. We then see Ashen saying goodbye to his subordinates of the Knightage, informing them he'll no longer be their captain as he's going to resign. The vice captain is quite broken up about it, wanting him to stay and asking him why he's leaving them so suddenly. He assures them they are more than prepared to continue their work without him, telling them they are already proper knights, asking them to take care and work hard after his departure. Before leaving, he tells them that he's resigning because there's someone noble he wants to take care of. OMG, each chapter I fall more in love with him, I swear. He goes to hand in his letter of resignation to Mirigan, telling him he wishes to become Ashtarte's personal guard and protect her. Mirigan warns him that Ashtarte is not allowed to have a knightage, and that he'll be demoted to a simple guard, losing all the power and privileges he had until then. He accepts this knowingly, telling him that once he realized she meant everything to him, he became prepared to accept anything that comes from protecting her. Mirigan then accepts his resignation, but asks him for one last favor before he leaves the Imperial Palace. He gives him 3 information sheets on different people: the daughter of a house in financial crisis, 2 twins with scarred faces, and a girl whose family name disappeared. He asks Mirigan who these people are, and he tells him that they are candidates to serve Ashtarte in the Empress Palace. Mirigan tells him to allow them to decide whether they want to work in the Empress's palace or not, then telling him that he must then enter the Empress's palace with the ones who accept. Half a month later, Ashtarte is caught by Lowena sweeping the floors. She scolds her sweetly and gives her some sugar tea, reminding her that she has promised that if Ashtarte kept her magical abilities a secret, she would make her sugar tea more often. Apparently, ever since after she met with the Emperor, she's never heard anything again from the Imperial family. No more invitations nor medicine from the Emperor, nor visits from any of the princes. Ashtarte is quite merry about that, as she seems to have finally found some peace. They hear a knock at the door and find Ashen, along with all the 4 women who volunteered to be Ashtarte's attendants, on the other side. Ashen tells them these girls are to be Ashtarte's new attendants, and they salute her, bowing and all, causing her to be quite shocked. Lowena seems to be quite skeptical, becoming furious when Ashen tells her they've been sent by Mirigan. She thinks he's insulting Ashtarte, and the new attendants seem to be upset by her response. However, Ashtarte, with her lively and warm personality, quickly makes them feel at home. She introduces herself and asks for their names. Ashen then informs Ashtarte that he'll now become her own personal guard. At first, she's feeling anxious about it, fearing Ashen may resent her and hate her for having resigned his job as captain. However, Ashen assures her that choosing to protect her has been the best choice of his life, leaving her at peace. Luena knows she can trust Ashen, but is still quite cynical of the new attendants and intends to keep a close eye on them. After Ashtarte leaves, Ashen begs Luena to give the attendants a chance, reminding her that she herself decided to look after Ashtarte of her own accord, just like these women. However, Luena admits that, in fact, she had been asked to do so by someone else. A few days later, Ashtarte is trying really hard to befriend the new attendants. She starts off with Olga Altino, a gorgeous light purple-haired girl. Ashtarte is trying to help her hang wet clothes, but she won't allow it, telling her that she won't let her hands get all wet. She insists, telling her she'll help her draw the water out of it, but Olga won't let her. She immediately cuts her off, telling her it's her job and that there's nothing for her to do there. Frustrated, Ashtarte leaves. She then goes to the kitchen where she finds the twins, Moana and Morgan Harold. She finds them preparing her food, so she sneaks up on them from behind so as to play a prank on them. However, before she can do it, she overhears their conversation. They are talking about their scars. It seems that Moana, the long-haired twin, keeps optimistic about their scars being able to heal. She bought some cheap medicine, which is supposed to be made from holy water, but Morgan doubts it's actual medicine due to the price. Moana then insists, telling her that as the Holy Festival is coming up, maybe they can get a chance to meet Isaiah Sin Siberian and ask him to use his holy magic to heal them. Morgan is, however, at her limit, reminding her that not even their parents wanted them and telling her to face the reality and accept they'll live with those scars forever. Ashtarte leaves quietly, not having meant to listen to that private conversation. Lastly, she goes to visit the apothecary. In charge of the medicine and all health-related is Veronica. While going there, she meets Ashen, who has a cut on his arm and was going to the apothecary himself. Once there, Veronica pours some medicine made from a plant on his wound, making the bleeding stop and his skin heal instantly. Connecting the dots, Ashtarte asks to borrow some of that medicine from Veronica. After Ashtarte leaves with some medicine that heals scars, Veronica notes to Ashen that Ashtarte seems to be very different from the rumors that have been spreading about her. They even reached her village, saying that she is an ominous being, and that when she met with Riley, she started to consume the light. However, she notes that there's nothing ominous about her, most of all after observing her beat-up hands from hard work. Ashtarte reaches the kitchen where she finds Moana. She approaches her, asking her where Morgan is, but Moana seems to be afraid of her due to the rumors behind her ominous presence. However, Ashtarte quickly shows her she doesn't need to be afraid, as she tells her she has a gift for them and gives her the medicine. Moana is extremely grateful and surprised to see her be so different from the rumors. However, Morgan appears and takes the medicine from Moana's hands, returning it to Ashtarte and coldly telling her that they've already tried it and it won't work on old scars. Then telling her to refrain from giving them false hopes. Yikes! She apologizes for her tone and leaves, leaving a defeated Ashtarte behind. Victoria then tells Ashtarte that the Crown Prince deciphered a spell that had incredible healing power, and so she runs to her room to look for the magic book in the spell. She finds it, but is hesitant to use it on the twins as she had promised Luena never to disclose her magical powers. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Castle, Riley is expecting Lord Isaiah to arrive at any moment. She had been resistant to becoming his guide at first, but after finding out he's supposed to be very handsome, she quickly agreed, now planning to make him her groom. Damn, this girl moves fast! Isaiah finally arrives and feels an ominous presence in the palace as soon as he exits the carriage. As Riley is showing Isaiah her magical lily garden, she ogles him up, deciding his looks are so good she's gonna marry him. However, he doesn't seem so bewitched with her as everyone else around her is, as he simply tells her he wants to be led to his quarters. Riley is a bit surprised, as it's the first time anyone's ever resisted her. But he convinces her it's because he feels tired from the long journey and her ego lets her believe it. Nonetheless, once she's further away, Isaiah notes that he's getting a bad feeling from her, as if she wasn't even something that's supposed to exist, and is left quite baffled at the High Priest's prophecy, not feeling her as being holy at all. Later at night, Isaiah decides to go on a stroll around the palace's grounds alone when he encounters the Empress's palace, even though no one told him about it. Inside the palace, Ashtarte is walking towards Veronica's quarters with a sore tummy, hoping she'll give her some medicine. She's still quizzed on what to do about the twins' scar, as she knows she can use magic to heal them, but she doesn't want to break her promise with Luena. However, walking down the hallway, she eavesdrops on a conversation the twins are having in their room about their scars. Moana is angry at Morgan for being so hopeless about their scars being able to heal, telling her she's desperate to heal them, even if she's given up, while reminding her that even their parents left them because of them. Quite the douchebag parents, if you ask me. At any rate, Morgan breaks down as well, crying and telling Moana that she too is tired of them, and sometimes she just wishes she'd disappear herself. Ashtarte is shocked to hear this from Morgan, as she always seemed to be quite strong and proud of her scar. That's when she bursts in and tells them she can heal their scars. Thus, Ashtarte takes the twins to the woods behind the Empress's palace and starts using magic on them to heal their scars. They're not alone though, as Isaiah is watching from behind a tree. The twins look at each other, elated to see their scars finally gone. Isaiah, who's been watching from behind a tree, is surprised to see her use such pure magic, finally finding the light of Firenze everyone talks about. Ashtarte then makes the twins promise not to tell anyone about her magical abilities, and they comply. The next day, the twins are trying to convince Veronica that their scars magically healed from the medicine they got at the temple before going there. She's reluctant to believe them, as it hurt her pride as an apothecary, but the twins won't budge. Luena, however, seems to realize Ashtarte had a hand in healing the twins' scars, but she says nothing about it. Later that day, Ashtarte decides to return the magical book to the Crown Prince and the cape to the second prince, hoping it will dissuade her from using more magic, and will make Luena happy to see her move on from the prince's affection. She asks Ashen to escort her to the Imperial Palace, and on the way there, he asks her to talk to him more informally, hoping she'll start treating him as family. As they approach the palace, Ashtarte notices no one's paying attention to her being there, and Ashen tells her they're probably too distracted by the presence of Lord Isaiah. It's the first time Ashtarte hears of him, and she's quite intrigued by the rumors that he has a holy appearance. Finally, they arrive at the door of the Crown Prince's office. She hears them talking through the door about her. Miran is questioning Noah about the time he told him he got rid of his cape because it was dirty, asking him if he'd instead given it to Ashtarte. She hears this and is heartbroken as she thinks even Noah considers her to be dirty. She drops everything on the ground and runs away while tears flow down her cheeks. The princes hear that sound and are alarmed, but it's too late. She's so hurt she decides that'll be the last time she'll cry because of them. Miran and Noah open the door to only find the cape and the magic spellbook thrown on the floor. They wonder what she could have possibly heard to make her react in such a way. And then Noah realizes she probably heard Miran say he'd thrown the cape away because it had gotten dirty. Noah's shook, worried she may have heard that, and now hates him based on a misunderstanding. After crying for a while, Ashtarte finally calms down, and Ashen walks with her back to the Empress's palace, after promising her he won't tell anything to Luena. In the Imperial laundry room, some maids are gossiping about Lord Isaiah, wishing to be able to see him and his rumored holy appearance. They're jealous of another maid, May, who's been able to see not only Lord Isaiah, but also Noah and Miran. May appears and continues boasting about this. One of his officers appears and tells him the Emperor has arrived and wants to meet with him. Once in the throne room, Isaiah faces an expressionless Emperor who asks him about the guidance Riley has been giving him. Isaiah replies it's been good, but he believes he doesn't need to be guided by her any longer, shocking the nobleman and most of all the High Priest, who interrupts him and tries to force his hand into accepting the guidance. Isaiah obliges, but asks instead to be guided by Ashtarte, shocking everyone even further. Horam starts going off about how Ashtarte is the darkness of Firenze, and finally, the Emperor interjects, ordering him to shut up. He asks Isaiah why Ashtarte, and he says he just wants to meet her, but the Emperor doesn't trust him at all, as he's a priest. The Emperor then tells Isaiah one of the princes will guide him, and Isaiah seems satisfied with this option. Noah then steps in, offering himself to be Isaiah's guide. The High Priest is utterly displeased with how things turned out, thinking Isaiah is sabotaging his plans. But Isaiah is not fond of the High Priest either, getting from him the same feeling of meeting something non-human he got when he met Riley. We are shown the conversation between Miran and Noah that led to Ashtarte being hurt. In fact, Noah has gotten angry at Miran for saying that he'd thrown his cape away for being dirty, still trying to not tell him he gave it to Ashtarte. It seems Noah's trying to gatekeep Ashtarte from Miran, feeling as though he's always taken everything that was his away from him. He remembers how he felt their mother gave all her affection to Miran, as well as Riley's affection and recognition for their magical talent. He feels as though Miran has always taken them all for himself. Thus, he told him he had thrown the cloak away to prevent Miran from gaining any interest in Ashtarte. But now it's all become a huge misunderstanding. Some days later, Noah and Miran go to the Empress's palace to apologize to Ashtarte and give back the cloak and the magical book. They are received by Ashtarte, but she bears a cold, expressionless look towards them now. She asks them to take those things back with them, but Noah just asks her if she heard the conversation between him and his brother. Noah tries to clear things up, telling her that it had all been a misunderstanding and that he didn't think she'd be hearing them. However, this only enrages her further, asking him if she hadn't heard them, he'd still be talking like that behind her back. Noah freezes, only being able to apologize to her. Miran then interjects, telling her they came to apologize and begging her to let things return to how they were before. Ashtarte laughs, telling them she's grateful for what happened as it made her realize a lot of things, and that nothing will go back as it was before. Miran then gives her another magical book as an apology gift, asking her to accept it and telling her they'll be going now. Ashtarte stands up, asking them to take the gifts with them, but they ignore her, still doing as they please. Later on, Ashtarte, the twins, and Ashen are outside in the garden of the Empress's palace, trying to plant some plants in the barren land. As they are working, they notice Lord Isaiah approaching them, who comes closer and steps before Ashtarte. In the tea room, Isaiah asks to speak alone with Ashtarte, and even though they don't know him as he's the Prince of Siberia, they can't refuse him. Once alone, he asks her if she healed the twins' scar, telling her he saw her. He tells her he won't tell anyone if she knows how to use magic, and she makes him pinky promise, just like Luana taught her. She tries threatening him, telling him that he'll face harsh consequences if he breaks the promise, as she's said to be the darkness of Firenze. Isaiah doesn't buy this at all, feeling as though she's the most radiant person he's ever met. He then ties a golden ribbon around her pinky finger, telling her that it is a tradition in Siberia to give another person a ribbon that represents oneself during the holy festival. Where back in Siberia, it's called the Celebration of the New Star. Ashtarte is gleaming while learning about another country's culture. He then leaves, and Ashtarte is left marveled by him. She feels he's a bit strange, but ultimately a good person. He even asked her before leaving to call him Isaiah rather than His Holiness next time they see each other. Isaiah then returns to his officers and tells them he was busy giving someone a ribbon. They are really shocked to hear this, as apparently those ribbons are only given to people you mean to seal a bond of destiny with. Back in the Empress's palace, Ashtarte is making black ribbons to give to the people she cares about. She's too sweet for this world. The next morning, Luana informs her there's going to be a visitor coming later that day, and she seems to be really attentive that everything is in order when they arrive. Finally, he arrives, and it's none other than Luana's father, Baron Gwen Juarez. Him and Ashtarte had never met in person before, but she's been looking forward to this meeting for a while, as he's the main reason they'd been able to live in the Empress's palace with no funding. While having some tea, Gwen tells Ashtarte she resembles her mother a lot, especially her eyes. He came there because he thinks it's time to give Ashtarte something. He's told Luana it's finally time to keep his promise, as he fears Ashtarte's mother's vision will come true and Ashtarte will be killed. Gwen tells Ashtarte that her mother left a notebook of hers with him, with the instructions to give them to Ashtarte if she ever longed for her. Ashtarte embraces the notebook in her arms warmly, thanking Gwen for giving her such a meaningful present. At night, Ashtarte goes to her late mother's bedchambers, noticing how it's always impeccably clean thanks to Luana. The Empress's notebook is sealed shut, and Ashtarte can't figure out how to open it. She'd hoped that bringing it to her mother's room would have made a change, but it's still sealed. Disappointed, Ashtarte rests her head on the book's cover while telling her mother she misses her, causing the seal to open. In a dream or trance, Ashtarte sees her mother, Rebecca, and young father, Orwin, meeting in the Imperial Gardens. They seem to be pretty smitten with each other, as Orwin asks her about her stomach, worried her pregnancy might be giving her stomach issues. But Rebecca assures him their child is well-behaved and, unlike him, doesn't torment her. Playfully, she tells him he left her lonely by going away for 3 days on work business, and he seems to be very submissive to her, apologizing and all. Ashtarte is surprised to see how fond of each other they were, as she remembers the Emperor telling her that her mother never loved him and disappeared as soon as she got pregnant with her, making her wonder whatever caused him to believe that. She's then taken to a moment further along in time, where a young Luena and Gwen are asking Rebecca why she's decided to stay away from the Emperor. She explains that she had a vision that the Emperor will end up killing Ashtarte, so she believes the best thing to do for her is to keep away from Orwin. Luena and Gwen tried pleading with her, telling her to at least explain this to the Emperor, but she insists on keeping it from him, as he never believed in prophecy, and this vision had come to her in a dream right after unveiling new San-Siberian magic. Ashtarte then wakes up and starts devouring the notebook, which turns out to be her mother's diary. There, she discovers her father became mad at her mother and eventually her because of their miscommunication, but in reality, he didn't even bother to check on Rebecca himself either. As Ashtarte keeps on reading, she gets to a part in which Rebecca writes that she heard from an attendant that Orwin asks for another woman to be sent to his bedchamber, wondering if he's already stopped loving her. She's miserable about it, but is trying to keep strong for Ashtarte. With that, Ashtarte finally decides she hates her father, as she interprets that he abandoned both her mother and herself in their time of deepest need. The next day, we see Riley about to throw a fit to her attendant because Isaiah didn't show up to see her, again. She's annoyed at him and at Ashtarte, thinking she wants to take away everything that is hers, insisting that she's the darkness. The headmaid tries to calm her down and finally manages to do so by convincing her to use this opportunity to show everyone that she indeed is the light of Firenze. Thus, a letter arrives at the Empress's palace, inviting Ashtarte for tea at the Imperial Palace. Luena doesn't seem to be too pleased with the invite, feeling as though it's half-hearted and not even polite, but Ashtarte decides to go anyway and asks Ashen to escort her there. As they approach the Imperial Palace, they stumble upon Isaiah, who's also heading that way, with a gloomy atmosphere about him. However, as soon as he sees Ashtarte, he immediately lights up, greeting her with a wide smile and asking her if she had been invited to tea as well. Ashtarte tells him she had, but also comments on how he didn't seem too eager to be going himself. He agrees with her, but tells her that now that she's going, he's very pleased to be attending. As they keep walking together, Isaiah puts on a gloomy face again, telling Ashtarte that she keeps calling him Your Holiness rather than just Isaiah as he previously asked her. She's a bit taken aback by this, but as soon as she calls him Lord Isaiah, his mood swings back into bubbly again. Moreover, Isaiah then notices a black ribbon tied to Ashen's sword shaft and tries reaching out to grab it. Ashen stops him though, telling him he can't take it as it's a gift given to him by Ashtarte. Isaiah then plays it off as though he was trying to see what's written on the ribbon, but Ashen knows better and asks him if he wasn't trying to grab it. Without denying it, Isaiah just turns to Ashtarte to ask her if there's a ribbon for him too, and she confirms there is, but she left it in the Empress's palace as she didn't think she'd meet him there. Ashtarte's also thinking about another person she wants to give a ribbon to, Rion. Finally, they arrive at the door for the tea room. To their surprise, the whole Imperial family is sitting there, and everyone seems shocked to be seeing one another except for Riley. She poses as being happy to see her, but as soon as she notices she came with Isaiah, her expression changes as she asks him if they came together. Ashtarte senses she has to be cautious about her answer, but before she can say anything, Riley notices her new hairpin, which was also given to her by Gwen from her mother. The Emperor also seems to notice the hairpin, and furious, he demands to know where she got it from. Ashtarte's really shaken from this whole situation, wondering why on earth they would call for her if they were going to treat her so horribly. Riley, being the egocentric brat she is, tries shifting attention to herself by telling Ashtarte that her new hairpin isn't as pretty as the one her father got for her, boasting about how expensive it is. Nonetheless, the Emperor doesn't seem moved by this at all and insists on asking Ashtarte where she got the hairpin from. Starting to get annoyed herself, she responds firmly that it's hers, but the Emperor just tells her it's not as he gifted it to Rebecca. Now yelling, she exclaims that it's something her mother left for her, but the Emperor is so consumed in his own narrative that he can't bring himself to believe that Rebecca kept it for all those years, as it would suggest she loved him rather than hated him. This makes Ashtarte furious as she realizes he'll never be able to see how much her mother truly loved him. So, She makes a firm statement to all those present, telling them that she'll stay in the Empress's palace and won't leave it from there on after. She continues by saying she won't go out if they don't want her to, and as she knows they hate her, she asks them not to pay any more attention to her. Apart from Riley, who seems quite pleased with how things are turning out, everyone else there gets upset by her decision. Noah even jumps up, telling Ashtarte he doesn't hate her. Nonetheless, Ashtarte turns to face them again, coldly, telling them she's the one who hates them now. As they are heading back to the Empress's palace, Isaiah asks her if she's okay, but Ashtarte seems to be happier than ever, relieved to have finally expressed her true emotions towards her family. Isaiah also asks her what she meant when she mentioned the 10 years. Apparently, after declaring her hatred for them, Miran asked her what they could do to gain her forgiveness, and she replied by telling them that they could do as she did and wait for 10 years. Therefore, she explains to Isaiah that for the first 10 years of her life, she never met her family due to the oracle, which in turn makes him think she hates him if she resents the god which sent down the oracle and him for serving it. Immediately, Ashtarte tells him she doesn't hate him, calling him one of the good priests and making him smile. Finally, we get to see Rion again. He's having a meeting with the second prince of the Nohay's Empire in his office in the Elframin estate. There, he tells the prince he wishes to start a blood revolution to take down the current emperor and reinstate someone who's a worthy leader. The prince seems a bit shaken by this, but it's no surprise to him as he's the one who gave Rion the list of the noblemen supporting the current emperor. Apparently, even the prince can't stand his father as he's a very immoral ruler, selling people off for slavery to foreign lands, killing people for even sending petitions to the palace, and much more. Thus, he's willing to aid Rion in taking him down and helping him become the new, just emperor. Some days prior to his meeting with the second prince, Rion has asked his servant to do some research on Ashtarte, and he finally found out she is the second princess of Firenze. Given that Firenze is a strong nation, Rion's plan to reunite with Ashtarte is to build Nohay's into a strong empire as well so that they can meet again as equals. Back in the Empress's palace, there is an alarming hard knocking on the main door. Ashen goes to check on who it is, and to his surprise, it is none other than Lucas, followed closely by the captain of the 5th Guard, Alec. Lucas explains that he tried stopping him, but it was no use. He came all the way there to ask Ashen to return to the Knightage. Ashen, however, is adamant in staying as Ashtarte's guard. Alec accepts his response quite easily and takes his leave, telling Ashtarte they'll meet again. Ashen is not too convinced about his response, as he knows him to be a determined man. In the twins' chambers, they are retying the ribbons given to them by Ashtarte when Olga bursts in, demanding to know if their scars have been healed by Ashtarte. They are shocked. Morgan asks her what she plans to do with this information, and she replies that she'll report it to the Crown Prince. She hopes that if everyone knows Ashtarte can read ancient magic, then her reputation will improve, and thus Olga can clean her own family name through her. Morgan stops her there, coming closer to retie her ribbon, while telling her she sounds like she's trying to sell out her master for greed, reminding her that she is one of Ashtarte's people as well. Meanwhile, the head maid of the Imperial Palace is meeting with the High Priest to report that the Emperor appointed the 5th Guard as Ashtarte's personal knightage. Completely outraged at this, as Riley was the only one with that privilege before. The High Priest cuts her off, reminding her that Ashtarte had promised to stay in the Emperor's palace. Thus, he orders her to keep an eye on her movements there, assuring her that the knightage means nothing. Ashen, Luena, and Ashtarte are extremely surprised to see a whole knightage awaiting them outside, led by the Emperor. Alec steps forward and introduces himself to Ashtarte, telling her that from that day on, they are going to be her very own dedicated knightage. The Emperor notices she doesn't look pleased about it, so he asks her what it is that she wants, to which she replies, as cold as stone, that she wants nothing from him. She reminds him that she won't be leaving the Empress's palace, so there's no need for him to start treating her well now. He looks upset, asking her if Rebecca left anything else for her that would make her resent him now. Ashtarte denies so, but he insists, and finally, she asks Luena to go pick her mother's diary from her room. As he devours through its pages, his gaze turns more and more sorrowful. Ashtarte had originally thought that her father didn't have the right to read her mother's journal, but now she thinks it'll suit him well to feel regretful about everything he's done. He finishes reading the diary and returns it to Ashtarte, tears falling down his cheek. Swallowed by guilt, he tells Ashtarte that anything she wants, he'll give to her, so she firmly demands the knightage be removed. However, the Emperor remembers when Alec came to him, requesting to be designated to her, and the sudden worry he felt for her safety after having a vision of her being murdered. Therefore, he forces her hand into accepting them, telling her that if not, they'd lose their jobs. Lastly, as he leaves, she requests him not to approach her anymore to allow her to hate them and heal, which he accepts. Time flies by, and the Holy Festival is at its end, meaning that it's finally the day for Isaiah to return to Siberia. He has one last reunion with Ashtarte, who looks quite disappointed to see him go, making him relieved. He confesses to her that he's relieved because her being sad about him leaving means that he's won her over. But this only makes Ashtarte become more confused. She clearly only views him as a good person, poor lad. But he tells her that he hopes her thoughts about him change next time they see each other, in the next Holy Festival in 5 years' time. She's even more confused than before, but he stands to get closer to her, and while touching her hand, tells her that he hopes to become more than just a good person to her. Also noticing he's wearing the ribbon she gave him, Ashtarte can't help but blush at this. After that, Isaiah is gone. In the Amadeus Temple, we see the high priest murdering a young woman. Later, he is called on by another woman asking about the health of her daughter. Shockingly, she looks identical to Rebecca, but we learn that she was only hired by the high priest to be the woman who slept with the emperor that night to birth Riley. She was clearly chosen because of a resemblance to Rebecca, and after giving birth to Riley, the high priest bought her silence by paying her monthly. However, she now seems worried as she went to the doctor recently, where she learned that she has been infertile for quite some time now. The high priest tries convincing her that even more so, this is proof that Riley is a miracle and the light of the empire. But the woman fears that she may not even be human. Menacingly, the high priest tells her not to worry and keep living in silence. Meanwhile, the Night Edge seems to have molded into the Empress's palace quite effortlessly, mounting guard every night and commuting from the dorms to be there. They are helping everywhere they can, even helping Olga carry a bucket of water. Ashtarte is walking by and notices Olga's ribbon has come loose, so she hastily approaches her and sweetly ties it again for her. This makes Olga feel uneasy, as she's still on the fence about selling her out to the prince or not. She asks Ashtarte why she treats her so kindly, and dumbfounded, Ashtarte tells her that it's because she's one of her people. Ashtarte reminds her of the first time they met and that she was the first person to greet her, confessing that ever since then, she's been trying to befriend her as she feels like she's a very kind and reliable person. This finally wins Olga over, deciding to keep her magic a secret. Meanwhile, Rion is leading the rebellion in the Nohei's empire. They've already arrived at the imperial palace, where they have the emperor cornered and the crown prince restrained. The emperor scorns him for using his magic against the royal family, asking him why he's taking revenge after so many years. However, Rion has a follower read the emperor all the charges he's facing for corruption. The emperor laughs, asking him what he plans on doing after killing him, but his laugh is cut short when Rion informs him that he plans on making him watch as his family is killed, as he had done to him, killing the crown prince. Then, he reveals that he plans on serving the new emperor, Joshua. He steps up, telling his father how he won't stand back and watch as his tyranny destroys the empire, as Rion administers the final blow that kills the emperor. With that, Joshua is now in the throne. Rion plans on making Nohei stronger to meet again with Ashtarte. 5 years have passed, and in the Empress's palace, Ashtarte is reading a letter she's received from Isaiah. Morgan and Moana are fangirling about it, as it told Ashtarte that he'd be coming to see her in the upcoming Holy Festival. Ashtarte blushes but brushes them off, leaving to ask Rowena for some cloth dye, as in the letter, Isaiah also reminded her of the tradition of the ribbons, asking her to make one for him. Gosh, I'm really split between Isaiah and Rion, you guys. Moana approaches Ashtarte with a letter from the Emperor. She asks her to throw it away as she's not going to read it. It seems as through the years they haven't respected her wishes to be left alone and keep sending her gifts and letters, all of which she's never opened. Apparently, the outskirts of Firenze are contaminated. The land and river have all dried up and nothing is able to grow there anymore. The nobles are debating on whether they should ask Siberia for help, but the high priest has told them he has everything under control. Nonetheless, many harmful rumors are being spread as many speculate this is a result of Ashtarte, the so-called darkness, being alive. They are all afraid this is a punishment from God, fearing that Horam's prophecy will come true. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Palace, Riley is asking Medena if Isaiah will be attending this year's Holy Festival. Medena tells her that's right, making Riley excited to have Isaiah meet her all grown up, believing that now he won't be able to refuse her in favor of Ashtarte as he did before. She also asks Medena about Ashtarte, wishing out loud that she just disappear, and making Medena convinced that Ashtarte has to be dealt with immediately, as she believes she's been troubling Riley. I don't like where this is headed, guys. In the Empress's palace, Veronica is giving Luca a book to return to the Imperial Library. But he's stopped by Ashtarte, who asks to read that book herself, even though Luca tells her that Veronica was quite disturbed by it. In any case, Ashtarte devours it that very night, becoming disturbed by its contents herself. The next morning, she's looking for Luca to have him return that book immediately, but she's caught with it by Veronica, who asks her if she's read it. She confesses she has, admitting she was upset by the contents as well. It apparently talks about a creature that's not human but poses to be human called a homunculus. They are crafted by hands of fallen beings, using black magic, and the only way to distinguish them from humans is by their bright green colored blood. Horrifyingly enough, we see Riley get cut by her hairpin in her room, revealing that she has green blood, terrifying herself. Ashtarte asks Veronica why she asked for that book, but Veronica clarifies that she asked for a book on black magic, not expecting to receive one about those creatures. Apparently, black magic is the most ancient and forbidden magic there is. It's prohibited because it requires an extra sacrifice in the form of animal blood or even human life. Thus, it's been forgotten in the Empire, and this is the first time Ashtarte is hearing about it. Ashtarte is still wondering why Veronica would need to learn about black magic, but she simply states that it's part of her scientific curiosity as an apothecary. However, Veronica has another reason to be interested in black magic. Apparently, 10 years ago, someone dear to her, Azalea, suddenly died after moving to the capital as a priest. They told her that she was killed for having gone against the high priest after he told his prophecy, but Veronica knows there's more to it. In the Imperial Palace, they just held a meeting regarding the contaminated land in the north. His Majesty is informed of the advances of the Nohei's Empire, which has just conquered an empire on the border of Firenze, and they intend to send a delegation to meet with them. In the Empress's palace, Luena gives Ashtarte a letter from the Imperial Palace that Ashen insists she receive. It's a petition from the Emperor for her to attend the baptism of the Imperial family that will take place at the beginning of the Holy Festival. Luena asks Ashtarte if she'll go, and as they are official business regarding the Imperial family, she says she must. Meanwhile, Riley has locked herself in a room as she makes herself bleed in various parts, being horrified each time as she always bleeds green. Not only that, but as soon as she's hurt, the wound immediately heals itself. She's appalled as she realizes for the first time in her life that she's not human, and that if it hadn't been for her brother's constant protection, she would have probably learned about it sooner. She hastily cleans everything up so that Medena nor anyone finds out about her new secret, as she believes she'll be treated as a monster and shunned out like Ashtarte was. Miran is heading towards the Empress's palace, longing to see Ashtarte once again, but he's being stopped by his advisor, Kale. Kale's trying to convince him to wait a little longer as they'll see each other in the royal baptism, also reminding him that he'd promised her to keep away for at least 10 years. Miran is adamant on going though, only turning to face Kale with sharp eyes after he tells him that people will perceive his actions negatively, as everyone is blaming Ashtarte for the contamination of the borderlands of the Empire. Building up some courage, Kale tells him that if he goes to her palace now, it'll only harm her circumstances more, as people will blame her even more, which finally makes Miran come to his senses. He wants to see her so badly, not only because he misses her, but also because this year she'll be turning 16 and becoming a debutante. So he wants to congratulate her personally. But he desists now that he realizes it may do more harm than good. Meanwhile, Gwen is giving Ashtarte a gift, and she's surprised as it's not even her birthday yet. He tells her he wants to give it earlier to her as she may need it soon, and it turns out to be this gorgeous black dress he got from a very famous boutique called January. To Ashtarte's displeasure, a few days later, the day of the baptism arrived. She's put no effort in her appearance, meaning to go and come back as quickly as possible. However, Luena catches her right before she goes, telling her she has to look incredible to show everyone how well she's been doing since the last time they saw each other, so she gets dressed in the dress Gwen gave her. Once they arrive at the Imperial Palace, the butler informs them that the baptism is going to be delayed, so they decide to go to the Imperial Library in the meantime. As they're heading there, Ashtarte is alarmed by a hard slapping sound, and so she goes to take a look at what's going on. Close by, they find two former maids of the Empress's palace, Miran and Kate, being harassed by two other maids from the Imperial Palace. They are bullying them for having come from the Empress's palace, saying that they are contaminated, but they shut up as soon as they see Ashtarte beside them. They apologize, but Ashtarte bears a cold, dead look in her eyes. She reproaches the bullies and then asks her former maids what they're doing there. Back when Ashtarte was a toddler, it seems that all the maids but Lowena left her to work for Riley. Nonetheless, Kate and Marianne had missed the timing, so they stayed behind as well. But as soon as they got another chance, they left Ashtarte without ever turning back. That's why now Ashtarte is surprised to see them being mistreated as they are, feeling a bit bad for them. However, as soon as they start trying to treat her well again, she cuts them off, telling them coldly that they shouldn't try to get in her good graces now. Still feeling bad for them, she turns to their bullies and warns them never to touch them again, instantly scaring them off. In the capital, a very good-looking Isaiah and a group of priests are hurrying to the Imperial Palace as they are running late for the baptism. One of the priests asks him why he's attending this year's holy festival, given how busy he is with the contaminated lands, but he simply states that he has a promise to keep. He bumps shoulders with a hooded man with deep violet eyes, clearly Rion, and they lock eyes for a moment. In that second, Isaiah felt overpowered by him, and Rion notices the ribbon Isaiah is wearing, which is the one Ashtarte had given him 5 years prior. Finally, Ashtarte enters the Imperial throne room. Miran stands up, elated to see she came, but Ashtarte coldly tells him that she came only because she was obliged. Her father then tells her she's grown pretty, coyly adding that she's read his letter. Callously, Ashtarte tells him that this is the only letter she's read of his, asking all of them to stop sending her gifts and letters. At last, the priests arrive, and Isaiah freezes on the spot as he gazes upon Ashtarte. Riley stands up, furious to see him look at Ashtarte with those eyes. He snaps out of it, and the baptism begins, starting off with Ashtarte. As soon as Isaiah casts the blessing spell on Ashtarte, she's enveloped by strong light, which then dissipates away from her. They are all worried, thinking that this may mean that she can't be blessed, but Isaiah is joyful, telling them that she can't be blessed by him because she's already been blessed with a much stronger blessing. The Emperor is furious, telling him he's taking them for fools as the only person who can cast a stronger blessing than him is his father, who never visited Firenze. But Isaiah informs him that Ashtarte has been blessed by a god, leaving everyone speechless and really consumed in worry. Ashtarte recalls Lowena told her that her mother used to meet with the gods in her dreams, where they gave her her name, and she thinks that maybe her mother might have been blessed by them, passing it on to her. It's Riley's turn to get baptized now, but as soon as Isaiah places his hands on her head, she slaps them away, throwing a fit and refusing to be baptized. She insists that she has High Priest Horam, so she doesn't need a blessing. But everyone knows that refusing a blessing from the Prince of Siberia in favor of a High Priest is ridiculous, as they can't even give blessings themselves. Horam immediately arrives, holding a crying Riley while she tells him about her blood. He comforts her, clearly aware of why she's like that. As soon as everyone else's blessings are finished, Ashtarte approaches Isaiah to talk before heading back to the Empress's palace. He's completely flustered, unable to speak properly after seeing her smile, making the other priests laugh a bit. He insists that she can go back to the Empress's palace now and that he'll go see her there later, clearly unable to get a hold of himself. Lastly, as Ashtarte turns to leave, she's called by her father, who wants to make sure she's all right and has everything she may need or want. She's frigid, not even turning to face him while telling him that the only thing she needs is time to hate all of them. Then, Miran asks Ashtarte to give them a chance, which really sets her off, reminding them of how they never gave her a chance when she was just a child. With tears pouring down her face, Ashtarte tells them this is no different from when she was a child, as they keep ignoring her wishes. Miran tells her that he was stupid for thinking that time would fix everything, and her father is about to say something as well when suddenly, the delegation sent from Nohes arrives, led by none other than Rion himself. Ashtarte freezes on the spot, asking him if he truly is Rion while facing him. Back in the Empress's palace, Moana asks her if she really met the notorious Duke of Elframun. The Nohes delegation is there to negotiate a peace treaty with Firenze, so Moana thinks Rion must be perfect, being smart and handsome. But Ashtarte seems to be in a very gloomy mood, telling Moana that he's not perfect as he has a terrible memory. Apparently, after she spoke to him, he completely ignored her, walking past her to the Emperor. Back in the Imperial Palace, Rion's subordinates are teasing him for his reaction, telling him he must have made Ashtarte upset, thinking he'd forgotten her. But he just sends them off to their rooms so he can hurry back out to the Empress's palace to finally reunite with her. Ashtarte, however, is so hurt she's decided she'll burn the black ribbon she made for him all those years ago, deciding she won't be the only one waiting for another person to notice her again in her life. Nonetheless, as soon as she steps out of the Empress's palace, ribbon in hand, she's met with a panting Rion, who clearly ran all the way there. In the setting sun, Rion greets her. Rion is completely different from before. He faces her now, much softer and clearly relieved to finally be reunited. But after the cold way he brushed her off, Ashtarte doesn't believe him. She says there's no need to pretend he recognizes her. But Rion assures her that he's been waiting years for this moment. I mean, just look at him. The man is head over heels. He wanted to answer her earlier, but when she was finally in front of him after all that time, he just froze. Rion apologizes sincerely, and this time Ashtarte can feel his honesty. It's actually kind of cute that someone known as the Butcher of Elforman can be tongue-tied by her beauty. At first, the princess laughs, and then scolds him for embarrassing her like that. She really missed him all these years, which is kind of rich from her since she's the one who left without saying goodbye. But Rion missed her too, obviously. As the sun sets, they gaze into each other's eyes. Jeez, it's like a scene from a rom-com or something. They spend the evening catching up until long after the sun's gone down. Ashtarte explains that he has very good timing. If he'd arrived just a few minutes later, she would have burned his ribbon. Worried she'll throw it away, Rion snatches the ribbon, noticing how his name is stitched into it. The sewing is somewhat messy, so he teases her for it. Give the girl a break. This was 5 years ago. Ashtarte offers to make him a new one, but he holds it close and asks who else received a ribbon from her. Everyone in the Empress's palace, of course, but before she can mention Isaiah, Rion asks her outright. She is surprised, but he already saw it when the two boys passed earlier. So instead, he changes his question. Which ribbon did she make first? The one for Isaiah or for Rion? Oh, so he's the jealous type. Ashtarte is a little flustered, but seeing his sincerity, she realizes this is important to him. The young boy she met all those years ago has matured. After all, a lot can happen in 5 years, especially as a teenager. She doesn't answer him, and Rion drops the questions, switching the conversation topic to the rumors spreading through Firenze these days. Among all the usual nasty things people say about Ashtarte, he also heard that she never leaves her palace. Ashtarte confirms that this is true, and he asks why. She turns away and simply says that people are afraid of her. Of course, we know that the truth is more like the opposite. These days, it seems like Ash is more scared of her family and the emotional damage they can cause than anyone is scared of her. But there are still many nobles who see her as a source of darkness, so in her mind, it's better for everyone if she stays locked up in her palace. Everyone except her. Rion says she hasn't changed at all and asks her to come out with him. He extends his hand, promising never to leave her side, even if the whole world turned against her. You see, this is why I miss this guy. He's a true ride or die. As Rion reminds the princess she is worthy of love, the tears begin to flow. She reaches a shaking hand and takes his, smiling more openly than we've seen in quite some time. These two are so cute together, but is anyone else kind of torn? I do really ship her with Isaiah too. Meanwhile, back at the Imperial Palace, Riley is still having a meltdown about her blood being green. And honestly, I actually feel a little bad for her. I mean, what would you do if you found out you weren't human? On her knees before the high priest, she sobs as she explains that her wounds also healed instantly and begs him for an explanation. Instead of helping her, Horam kicks her hard. After all this time keeping her secret and raising her so carefully, in the end, she found out the truth. That Amaryllis Firenze, princess and shining light of the Firenze Empire, is actually a homunculus that he created himself. Well, I think we saw that one coming, but does he have to be so evil about it? While Riley is having an existential crisis, Rion and Ashtarte have run to the edge of the Empress's palace and have reached the Lily Garden. The lights of the Holy Festival are just a short distance away, but before they can take one step further, a haggard-looking Riley blocks their path. Rion has never met her before, but this can't be the first best impression. Riley screams at them to turn back, commanding her half-sister to keep her promise to stay in the Empress's palace. But Ashtarte never made such a promise, and even if she did, why would she listen to Riley? In desperation, Amaryllis reminds her of the prophecy, telling her to think of the public. She even goes so far as to claim Ashtarte should feel grateful to Riley for letting her live all these years despite the prophecy. Whoa, this girl needs to be knocked down a few pegs. Luckily, Rion is the perfect man to do it. He reminds the princess that all royals deserve dignity, even from other royals. Right now, she looks like a pathetic idiot who's trying to oppress a fellow princess. Ouch! If anyone overheard them right now, Rion would be in serious trouble. But of course, Riley blames her sister for this humiliation and suddenly lunges at her. Rion catches her wrist before she can get too close and warns her not to harm Ashtarte in front of him. With a vicious smile, he welcomes her to find out the consequences for herself if she's curious. But one look at those cold, violet eyes sets Riley straight at once. When she doesn't respond, Rion shoves her aside and pushes Ashtarte gently past, leaving the silver-haired princess shaking behind them. She collapses to her knees, tears flowing freely as she remembers the words of the high priest from earlier. He called her a monster and said she owes everything she has to him. If it wasn't for Horam, she wouldn't have her status, her title, or anything. Because all of that belongs to Ashtarte. And if the royal family found out, well, let's just say it wouldn't be good for Riley. So she has no choice but to follow Horam's orders in order to keep her position, and probably her life. Suddenly determined, Riley crushes a bundle of flowers and gets back to her feet, leaving the blackened petals in her wake. And guess who finds those deadened flowers as she walks away? Lord Isaiah. His suspicions have now been confirmed. The aura of the dead land is coming from Princess Amaryllis. She's the true darkness from the prophecy. Took him long enough. Rion and Ashtarte, oblivious to all this, have just reached the village where the holy festival is still in full swing. The markets are full of vendors selling cookies, lily-shaped candies, and purity charms to protect wearers from the dead land. Rion brought an extra cape for Ashtarte, so the two of them can walk around and enjoy the festival in peace, so long as they keep their hoods raised. He really wants her to enjoy herself for once, so she takes his hand and does her best to relax. Once they're among the crowd, it's easy to blend in and enjoy the festivities. There are public plays, musicians, archery stands, all kinds of things Ashtarte has never seen before. It brings Rion a lot of joy to see her so curious. Her interest is snagged by a snoozing vendor who offers them a chance to play the handcuff game. Is anyone else thinking what I'm thinking? Anyway, the game is simple. They have 10 minutes to undo a pair of handcuffs that have been specially designed to open without a key. Or at least, that's what the vendor says. If they fail, they pay 3 silver. If they succeed, it's free. Sounds like a scam to me. Ashtarte thinks so too, but before she can refuse, the vendor has slapped the handcuffs on Rion and started the time limit. Of course, this is all a little triggering for Rion, but it's even more stressful for her. She's determined to set him free, not realizing that he could probably break them in pieces with one flick of his wrist. After focusing intently, Ashtarte succeeds with just a few seconds to spare. Well, that's what she thought. The truth is that Rion was secretly flipping the hourglass to give her more time and gave the vendor a whole bag of gold to keep his mouth shut. Aw, he really is a gentleman. They return to the plaza, which is packed with people awaiting the highlight of the holy festival. Fireworks. Ashtarte has never seen anything like them before and watches in delight as 1,000 different colors explode before her eyes. Rion, the champ of all simps, is just happy to see her smile. While they're watching the display from a bridge, a young boy suddenly runs into them, toppling backwards onto his butt. This kid is from the slums, and his name is Isaac. He starts wailing about how his butt hurts, so Rion offers to take him to a physician. Ashtarte assures him that there's no need. She mutters a simple spell and emits a warm golden light from her hands. In seconds, the pain is gone. But while casting the spell, her hood slips, revealing her night black hair. And she just did magic in the center of town. This can't be good. At the worst time possible, Isaac remembers what his brother told him about the princess having black hair. Ashtarte starts to panic. She and Rion try to move along before he can make a scene or call attention to her. But just as they're turning away, he says it's nice. Her hair is black like the night sky, so he thinks it's really beautiful. Aw, what an unexpected reaction! While Ashtarte is standing there stunned, Isaac is called away by his brother. He smiles and bids the two of them goodbye, wishing them a good night. Well, that was surprisingly wholesome. The fireworks are coming to a close, so Rion suggests they head back to the palace. That's the first time the princess has thought of her hair as a blessing, so it takes her a while to process as they're walking home. Rion gently reminds her that she shouldn't use her magic on just anyone. But he should know better by now. Our girl can't stand to see someone in pain, especially a little kid. Actually, he's not trying to scold her. He just wanted to point out that he was the first to think her hair is beautiful. Wow, he really is the jealous type. Ashtarte doesn't know how to take the compliment and says he's probably the only one. Everyone else thinks her hair color is a curse, which is still crazy to me. The fact that her fate was decided at birth because she has dark hair is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Rion must think so too. He suddenly hugs her from behind, stopping her in her tracks. Her hair was always pretty, back when they first met and even now. That kid thought so too, and they won't be the only ones. Ashtarte is touched by the gesture and his kind words. She always wanted to stay in the shadows so she didn't scare people. It never occurred to her that the things which made her different could also make her beautiful. While she and Rion embrace, the little boy Isaac returns to his older brother Leon. He's crippled from an old injury, so it's hard for him to walk around. Isaac apologizes for making him search and then asks about the princess, saying he ran into someone with black hair. Leon's first reaction is fear. He asks if Isaac did anything rude to that person. He must be afraid that she really is evil, just like the rest of the common people. Maybe Isaac can start spreading the truth about how kind she is. Rion and Ashtarte are watching the festival wrap up from a nearby hilltop when she reaches for his hand. Usually, she gets scared walking at places with lots of people, but being with him, she felt fine. Of all the people she's met, Rion is the only one who understood her loneliness when she was younger. He's also the only one who calls her beautiful, so that helps. With an innocent smile, she asks if he would attend the next holy festival with her too, so that she can explore without feeling scared. Girl, of course he would! I'm pretty sure this guy would climb a mountain if you asked him to. Very pleased, Rion kisses her hand and says it would be his pleasure. The next morning, the magic of the holy festival has come to an end. It's been replaced by the tension between Isaiah and Rion, who both came to visit Ashtarte at the Empress's palace. Things are about as awkward as you'd expect. They keep trying to one-up each other by proving how close they are to the princess. Isaiah is especially hurt when he finds out Ashtarte told Rion to call her by her name. And it only gets worse when she says it's because he's special. Oh boy, that's gonna break the poor kid's heart. Trying to recover himself, Isaiah explains that he did actually visit with a purpose. He asks if anything strange has been happening lately. He doesn't give much reason for asking, other than that as a high priest, he needs to know. Ashtarte hasn't noticed anything strange, and confirms that she hasn't had any interaction with High Priest Horam other than briefly at the baptism. Though she did notice at the ceremony that she didn't sense the same pure energy from him that she does from the other Holy Kingdom priests. Isaiah clenches his fists and says nothing, which makes her concerned. She reaches out to touch his hand, hoping to comfort him. Instead, both men stand up at once, making her flinch. Jeez, could these guys be any more obvious? She suddenly wonders if it was because she touched his hand, so she does it again just to check. Isaiah gets all flustered, while Rion tries to physically restrain her. He uses the excuse that His Holiness is startled and asks her to let go. So of course, Isaiah only holds on tighter. Boys, you're going to rip her apart. Thankfully, Ashen walks in just at the right moment and immediately understands what's going on. This guy knows a love triangle when he sees one. He rushes to Ashtarte's side and offers to draw his sword. He's seconds away from slicing one of them in half when Ashtarte shoves him out of the room, promising to return momentarily. Once the men are alone, Rion questions His Holiness about his feelings for the princess and what he was trying to ask her about earlier. Knowing how close he is with the princess, Isaiah decides to trust him and starts to talk about the dead lands at the Firenze borders. He claims to have discovered the cause, but won't elaborate any further. His only concern is that Ashtarte may be in danger. Meanwhile, the Imperial Council has received a report about a serious disease spreading through the Empire. There's currently no cure, but the reported symptoms are similar to an ancient cursed illness known as half-moon fever. Cursed illnesses only appear when someone uses forbidden black magic, so the only solution is to identify the cause and purify the curse. Noah offers to lead the investigation, and despite his brother's protests, the Emperor accepts. Of course, Rion is already on the case with his own people, determined to keep an eye on Horam after the warning from Isaiah. A few days later, Ashtarte is sitting in the garden with Isaiah, who declined to join the purification pilgrimage in favor of, well, playing hooky with Ashtarte. Of course, he can't help himself from making a comment about Rion and how much time they spend together. Jealous much? While they're having tea out in the garden, he asks why she told Rion not to call her Your Highness. Ashtarte blushes, not sure how to explain their relationship. When they first met, he didn't know she was a princess, so naturally, it's uncomfortable for him to treat her so formally now. She tells the story of how he helped her, and how she couldn't have made it this far without him. Isaiah makes a strange expression, and suddenly gets down on one knee. But don't panic, he's not popping the question. Actually, he just wants permission to call Ashtarte by her name. The princess doesn't care, but for some reason, she gets the sense that Rion would be really hurt if she said yes. So she doesn't give permission and apologizes instead. Isaiah is clearly hurt, but he tries to act casual and asks her to at least call him by his name. Ashtarte is still thinking about it a few days later, wondering if it's even appropriate to call such a noble lord by his first name. But she agreed anyway, and it made the poor guy so happy that she can't back out now. In the last few days, she hasn't seen either of her love interests. Without the usual drama to occupy her, Ashtarte gets bored and asks Ashen to escort her on a trip outside the palace. Ashen and Luena immediately refuse. With the disease spreading rapidly through the empire, it's way too dangerous for her to go out. But they can't tell her that, so when Ashtarte insists, they have no choice but to follow her orders. Ashen is extra careful while they walk through the town, making her frustrated. She's about to snap at him when she suddenly spots a familiar face. Prince Noah is shocked to see her outside in the middle of a pandemic, and accidentally says her name. Of course, the townspeople hear and the news spreads like wildfire. Great, now she has to go back home. While wandering the back alleys, Ashtarte gets lost and ends up in the slums. She meets Isaac, the kid who said her dark hair was beautiful, though he looks a lot worse for wear this time. Before he can get too close, Ashen steps in with his sword drawn, fearing contamination. And for good reason. Isaac's older brother is sick with the plague. Ashen says they should get a doctor, but the princess doesn't care at all. She's determined to help, and once Ashen hears the name Leon, he can't stand by either. Leon was a friend from his early days who means a lot to him, but nothing matters more than the princess's safety. After hearing that, Ashtarte is more determined than ever and fearlessly steps inside the house. Meanwhile, Rion is having serious withdrawals from not seeing Ashtarte enough. This boy is literally a textbook simp. He's been able to restrain himself from visiting so far, but when a soldier announces that the princess has gone to the plague-ridden slums, the decision is made for him. Leon is doing about as bad as you'd expect. His body is covered in welts, and his fever is so severe that he's struggling to breathe. It's obvious this is no normal illness. These kind of symptoms can only come from a cursed disease. Poor Isaac is terrified. He just wants reassurance that his brother will get better, so Ashtarte does exactly that. Even though Ashen said there was no cure, she has to at least try. The princess places her hands on Leon's chest and tries a healing spell. It's the same magic she used for the twins, but now it's not working. Panicking, Ashtarte tries another spell, and another, using all her mana until she starts to shake. Ashen is worried she'll collapse, and at this rate, she really might. Fortunately, before that happens, Rion bursts into the house. Did he run all the way here? Ashtarte wasn't expecting to see him. She also wasn't expecting him to pull her into a tight hug the moment they saw each other, but that's Rion for you. Always the romantic. He was really worried for her health, so he came as soon as he heard. He asks why she didn't wait for him to accompany her if she needed to visit such a dangerous spot, and Ashtarte apologizes. I mean, given she didn't even know about the cursed disease until like 10 minutes ago, I don't think this is really her fault. Plus, she's kind of mad at Rion for knowing about the disease and not telling her. She's not some fragile little princess who can't handle the real world. We all know she's had her fair share of tragedies, so why do people keep treating her like a child? But Rion doesn't take that well at all. He doesn't think anyone is worth endangering the princess's life, and he doesn't care if that makes him look selfish. The only way he knows how to protect her is to keep her from danger, so that's exactly what he's going to do. By the way, is anyone else wondering why they're still having this conversation in a literal plague house? Like, if they're really so worried about infection, shouldn't they take this outside? Anyway, All that makes Rion sound a little possessive, but honestly, Ashtarte kinda likes it. And he's not totally stubborn. If she's really set on saving Leon's life, then he agrees to help. Well, why didn't you say that from the start? Come on, people, let's get moving! He hands over a spellbook containing magic that has yet to be deciphered. Knowing Ashtarte's talents, he's pretty certain she'll be able to read the entire thing. He even thinks she could use it to save the whole empire from this curse. Well, it's worth a shot. Once again motivated, she accepts the book. After that, Rion leaves her to it. He still has his own tasks to attend to, and seeing Ashtarte has made him realize something. Wouldn't it be ironic if the one person the Empire feared for so long became their savior? And if that were to happen, how would High Priest Horam react? Let's be honest, he'd probably throw a tantrum. Speaking of the big baby, he's just been visited by a terrifying figure clothed in all black. These two seem to be good friends. The stranger has come to test his new magic, but to do that, he needs a subject. It doesn't take a genius to realize they're talking about some pretty dark stuff, especially since the stranger mentions that Horam had to break some regulations to help him. Their conversation turns to the cursed land and diseases roaming the Empire. Like a true villain, Horam already has a plan to save the Empire and take all the credit for himself. But before he can reveal it, Riley appears looking deeply disturbed. She can't see the stranger, so from her perspective, it looks like the High Priest is talking to himself. Suddenly, the stranger steps into view and she flinches. He makes a very creepy comment about how much she's grown since they last met, and even reveals her true nature. The princess is shocked. The fact that she's a homunculus is not common knowledge, so who the heck is this guy? The mysterious man leans uncomfortably close and reaches out to touch her cheek, claiming that if it wasn't for the crown prince, he would have killed her a long time ago. Well, that's incredibly unnerving. Riley finally recognizes him as the intruder from her childhood, which is news to Horam. Apparently, this guy was testing ancient magic from the Nohe's Empire on Miran at the time. Obviously, that freaks Riley out, so she tries to leave and seek the safety of her brother's protection. The intruder thinks it's funny that she's scared of him. After all, he's the one who made Horam create her. He even says she can call him father if she likes. Okay, now that's twisted. Does anyone else feel really bad for her right now? It's a good thing Horam isn't a total demon and steps in to separate them. He makes the stranger leave, but not without a promise that he'll see Riley again soon. As soon as he's gone, she drops to the floor in floods of tears. The High Priest assures her that everything's going to be okay, because it's finally time to get rid of Ashtarte. He gives her a vial of very strong poison and tells her to mix it into her sister's tea. If she can't do it herself, she can order the head maid to do so. The only catch is that she has to drink the poison tea too. That's the only way to avoid suspicion. Horam says she won't die from drinking it, but does anyone else think that's a little sus? Like, I know she's not human, but poison is poison. The priest reassures her that once the darkness of Firenze has disappeared, no one will suspect her. But really doesn't seem to care. She's too excited at the idea of killing Ashtarte to think about the consequences. Yup, there goes my sympathy. Back in the slums, Ashtarte has been flipping through the spellbook for an hour with no success. After what feels like an eternity, she lands on the right page and casts a spell over Leon's body. The room is filled with golden light, and his markings begin to fade. As he opens his eyes, the princess tells him to get up and greet his brother. And to everyone's shock, he actually does. In just a few seconds, he was totally cured. Isaac runs to hug him, crying as Leon apologizes for worrying him. They both get on their knees to thank Ashtarte, but she tells him there's no need. Leon is insistent that he repay her somehow, but she has to be on her way. Unfortunately, the spell has taken quite a toll on her, so it doesn't look like she's going anywhere anytime soon. Somehow, Rion appears to catch her as she faints. Was he just hanging outside this whole time? As she falls unconscious, he tells her she did a good job and reassures a worried Ashen that she's perfectly fine. She just ran out of magic for the day. He picks her up bridal style and takes her outside, leaving his men to help handle the rest. Leon watches them go, feeling guilty that he can't do more, when he suddenly realizes that his legs have been completely cured. If you remember, the last time we saw this guy, he couldn't walk without a cane. The doctor said they were a lost cause, but now he can stand on his own without any pain. As if that wasn't enough surprises for one day, he then notices Ashen, his old friend from back in the days when they were soldiers together. He confirms Leon's suspicions that the girl who saved him was in fact Princess Ashtarte. Considering his old friend nearly died, Ashen isn't very emotional. He thought Leon had died long ago on the battlefield, but he was saved by a priest who brought him back from the brink of death. At the time, the priest said Princess Ashtarte was the shining light of Firenze, and now he knows it's true. Well, I think we all know who that was. There's only one priest who would have been so nice about Ashtarte despite her reputation. Speaking of Isaiah, he's currently walking through town being laughed at by his friend High Priest Alan. Apparently, the fact that he's hopelessly in love with the princess is kind of hilarious, considering he's never had any interest in romance before now. Plus, his rival is the war hero Duke Elferman. It's pretty much a hopeless case. Alan says he's been totally rejected, but Isaiah isn't ready to give up just yet. He just needs to find a way to become more important to her than Duke Elferman. Alan gives him some advice, telling him that if he truly wants something, then he should work for it. I don't know if that means he wants the two guys to fight it out or what, because the next moment they spot Prince Noah visibly shaken and panting. It's getting late, so they approach him and suggest he head home. Noah is a little snappy, but that doesn't deter Isaiah from grabbing him, revealing the marks of the cursed disease on his arm. Oh no, not Noah! He's rushed back to the palace immediately, where the Emperor's advisors immediately start complaining about the risk he poses. Bringing an infected person into the palace puts them all in danger, but the Emperor ignores them. What else is he supposed to do? That's his son! He asks Isaiah for a cure, but there isn't one. They don't know that Ashtarte can heal those affected by the curse, and even if they did, she's too weak to do anything right now. We just have to hope that Noah can hang on until she regains her magic. Isaiah, as always, is only thinking about Ashtarte. Noah received a blessing but still fell ill, which means the princess isn't safe either. He rushes to the Empress's palace, where Ashen and Rion have just arrived with the sleeping princess in his arms. Ashen is worried about the palace servants seeing, but rumors are the least of their concerns right now. Watching the way he cares for her, Ashen can't help but ask if the Duke has feelings for Her Highness. Rion falters for a second and then refuses to answer. Not because he's scared to say the truth, but because he wants Ashtarte to be the first person to hear it. Okay, is anyone else obsessed with this man? How can he be so rough and also so romantic? Isaiah comes running up to them, covered in sweat and panicking when he sees Ashtarte in his rival's arms. They tell the priest she's just exhausted after roaming around the town, and Rion coldly brushes past him, saying they need to put Ashtarte to bed. Again, he called her by her first name. He's literally carrying her in his arms. Isaiah is always just one step behind. That doesn't stop him from following them into the palace, where Lowena and the twins hurry to make the princess as comfortable as possible. Rion lays her in bed and gently brushes her hair, unaware that Isaiah is watching from just over his shoulder. That's a little creepy. To help speed her recovery, he casts a healing spell over the sleeping princess, relieved to see no symptoms of the curse just yet. While her two lover boys are watching over her, Ashtarte wakes up in some kind of dream dimension. She's surrounded by rumors from her childhood, all sorts of nasty things said by people who feared the prophecy. They even asked her father to kill her and said she didn't belong in this world. If only they knew the true monster was Amaryllis all along. Suddenly, all the voices are drowned out by one simple comment about her beautiful hair. She remembers Isaac's gratitude for saving his brother, then Ashen's promise to protect her and the girls from the Empress's palace. Finally, Rion appears, reaching out a hand to bring her back to the real world. She gladly goes with him, ready to shed her reputation as Firenze's darkness and become their guiding light. That night, the village has their first snow, signaling the start of winter. All the infected people from the slums have been miraculously cured. It seems Ashtarte managed to heal them all with just one spell. Isn't that wild? Sometimes I forget how powerful she truly is. That also explains why she's been out for so long. Ashtarte has been asleep for days before she utters her first words, asking Lowena for a drink. Lowena is relieved that her mistress has arisen and spreads the news around the palace at once. It only takes minutes for the boys to arrive, each as concerned as the other. Isn't stress bad for patients with exhaustion? Someone give this girl a break! It's obvious they rushed over as soon as they woke up. Isaiah's brooch is twisted and Rion's clothes are all crumpled. It's kinda cute, actually. She apologizes for making them worry and thanks Isaiah for casting a recovery spell. Rion isn't exactly stoked to hear her using his first name, but he manages to keep a lid on his temper. Despite her amazing recovery, Isaiah still seems very worried about her health and asks her to stay inside the palace. He accidentally mentions that even blessed Prince Noah wasn't safe from the curse, so naturally, Ashtarte runs to see him at once. Even while she's sprinting, the princess is surprised at herself. She wanted her family to suffer the way she has all these years, so shouldn't she be happy that her brother is ill? Suddenly, she trips, which is basically Rion's signal to appear out of thin air and catch her. Seriously, was he running alongside her or something? Anyway, there isn't time to thank him or ask questions. As Rion reminds her, the most important thing right now is to save her brother. She arrives just in time to find Miran hesitating at the door to Noah's room. He's surprised to see her and asks her to go back home since it's too dangerous. He tries to assure her that he can take care of the prince, but Ashtarte won't listen to reason. Isaiah tries to stop her, but Rion catches him. He's the only one who's seen what she can do, though it's kind of frustrating that he's decided to be all mysterious rather than explaining that she actually will be fine. As much as he hates to see it, Rion is so confident that Isaiah has no choice but to trust him. Inside the bedroom, Ashtarte is approaching Noah, who looks really, really sick, like on death's door type of sick. Even in his state, he still recognizes her and begs her to leave before she can become infected. See? He is a good brother. To prove it, he takes this chance to apologize to her for everything, even though he knows she won't believe him. Ashtarte doesn't correct him. Actually, she says straight up that she won't ever be able to like him. Damn, girl, he's literally on his deathbed. Couldn't you be a little kinder? But Noah doesn't mind. He's just relieved to hear her say that she might forgive him one day. And for that reason, he has to live. She takes his hand and uses her magic, filling the room with light. It's so bright that even the guys outside realize what's happening, though they can hardly believe it. Isaiah knows the curse is being lifted and turns to Rion, asking if he knew. Look at his smug little face. Of course he knew. Once Ashtarte lets go, Noah is completely cured. His wounds have disappeared, and he looks 1,000 times better. He pulls his sister into a hug and thanks her. After that, the news of her saving the prince's life spreads through the empire. The curse in the slums was also lifted, leading people to believe that the one they call the Star of Darkness is actually some kind of saint. For the last 15 years, everyone thought she was the villain of this story, but finally, the truth is out. For the first time, people are starting to question the prophecy. I mean, it's no small feat to revive an ancient magic and save a member of the royal family. As thanks for her actions, Noah and the Emperor have sent endless bouquets of flowers and letters thanking her. The twins ask if they should throw them away, but she heard from Ashen that the one who spread the rumors about her powers was Prince Noah, so instead she asks for the flowers to be placed in her bedroom. Isn't that sweet? Part of her thinks they're just trying to rid themselves of guilt, but Noah really is going all out. He's even been handing out cookies in her name to improve her reputation. But along with all this goodwill comes the realization that Ashtarte has ancient magic at her fingertips. Captain Alec, who overhears her conversation with the twins, seems a little upset that he's the last to know, though he's pretending not to be. Suddenly, remembering an appointment, she rushes to meet the boys for tea in the garden. They ask if anything has changed since the incident, mainly if High Priest Horam has been in contact. At this point, it's pretty obvious that they know something she doesn't, so she asks them straight up. Isaiah seems worried about upsetting her, so Rion explains for them both. It all starts with the prophecy that defined her whole life. The prophecy that people believed with unwavering faith. It was meant to come straight from God, so why would they have any reason to doubt it? Well, now Isaiah thinks it might have been a lie. For all the hardship she's been through, Ashtarte is still so naive. She's shocked to hear that the High Priest could be fooling the entire empire. In fact, she can't quite process it. The idea that her whole life could have been a lie, that all her suffering is because of one person's greed? You can't blame her for being suspicious. Seeing her worry, Rion grabs her hand and tells her not to worry. She doesn't have to do anything except be herself. That makes her feel a lot better, but makes Isaiah feel a lot worse. They take a stroll around the garden while he explains the cause of the dying land. The only possible explanation is that something unholy is lurking in Firenze. Something that isn't human. The only person Isaiah has met with that kind of aura is Princess Amaryllis. The two of them are certain she's the cause of all of this, and has only got away with it because she's being backed by Horam. The only problem is, they don't have any proof. Plus, they don't understand the High Priest's motivations. He already has money, power, and honor, so what is he trying to gain? At just that moment, a letter arrives from Princess Amaryllis, inviting her to afternoon tea. Here we go, people. This must be her attempt to kill her sister. And, in case you had any doubt, she's currently staring lovingly at the vial of poison in her bedroom. This girl is certified insane. While his daughter is playing with poison upstairs, the Emperor is despairing about the hypocritical nobles in his court. When Noah was ill, they all cleared out and pretty much abandoned the royal family. Now that he's all better, they came scurrying back like nothing had ever happened. Miran approaches him with news, but the Emperor says he's too exhausted to hear it. That is, until he mentions Ashtarte. He perks up at once, worried that something happened to his new favorite daughter. She's fine, for now, but after demonstrating ancient magic that no one else had been able to revive, Miran has reason to believe that she can read every ancient language. His father thinks it's ridiculous. You can't just pick up an ancient language the way you can pick up French or Spanish. Anyone who can read more than one ancient language is currently considered a genius. So the idea that she can read all of them? Well, you can understand why he's doubtful. But Miran saw her powers for himself, and he didn't recognize the magic she was using. It was a spell that purified the curse. It wasn't some lucky guess. She knew exactly what she was doing. The Emperor still doesn't quite believe it, but if that is true, her talents could only be a blessing from God. Finally, we return to Ashtarte, standing outside Princess Rilly's palace. Rion came with her, of course. There's no way he would have let her walk into this place on her own. She feels a little uncomfortable bringing an uninvited guest to tea, but Rion isn't budging. He promises not to interrupt and says he'll wait outside. Besides the fact that he wasn't invited, Ashtarte is always nervous around Rion these days. Ever since that day in the slums, she's found her heart racing just from being near him. And this girl actually has the nerve to wonder if he feels the same. Bestie, he could not have made it more clear. Just as she's about to ask him, he poses a question of his own. He steps closer, leaning down to her height to ask when she started calling Isaiah by his first name. Damn, really thought we were going to get a confession just then. Ashtarte still hasn't figured out why he's so bothered, but she tells him it hasn't been long. And she knew he wouldn't like it if Isaiah started using her name, so she refused and used his instead. Rion is both touched and embarrassed, but thanks her for thinking of him. The next moment, a maid appears to take her inside, politely stating that the Duke is not allowed inside since he wasn't given an invitation. Uh-oh. He can't even wait outside the room? That's not good. Ashtarte is led inside the palace, taking note of the many red roses in bloom. They remind her of the color of blood. Maybe she's just nervous, but I kind of wish she'd trust her instincts and run. Rilly is already waiting with a cup of tea and a fake smile. She's all politeness for once, thanking her for accepting the invitation despite how much they hate each other. Ashtarte remains cautious as she goes on about how she saved Noah using ancient magic. Rilly? Clearly jealous. But she still believes her sister is out to get her and take everything she has. For the 1000th time, Ashtarte tells her she has no intention of harming Rilly, but apparently, that's besides the point. One way or the other, Ashtarte will be the cause of her downfall. Of that, she's certain. And honestly, she's probably right, though not for the reason she's expecting. Rilly does a complete 180 and suddenly gets all friendly again, saying they should learn to get along if she wants to survive. She offers her the tea in the most suspicious way possible. No, seriously, she even says she didn't add anything suspicious. As if that's gonna convince her. But then Rilly takes a sip herself, and since Ashtarte saw her pour both cups, she has no reason to doubt her. She still doesn't understand why Rilly called her here, but she doesn't question any further, and takes a sip from her cup while her sister watches, smiling. No, Ashtarte! I can't believe she actually drank it! She feels the effects instantly, dropping her cup and coughing violently. Blood is already streaming from her mouth, and her body won't move. While she sits there paralyzed and coughing, Rilly grabs a chunk of her hair and tells her sister that she truly hates her. You don't say. Ashtarte just about manages to ask why. Her sister goes on a classic villainous rant. Everything she ever thought belonged to her was merely borrowed. Her whole life she thought she was the shining princess of light, but the truth is far darker than that. She can't stand the weight of that secret and how she was betrayed by the high priest. Obviously, Ashtarte doesn't have a clue what she's talking about. She asks what was in the tea, but Rilly throws her to the ground instead and tells her she can only live if her sister dies. And she starts bleeding from the mouth as she says it. Ashtarte immediately recognizes the green blood as the sign of a homunculus. Now everything is finally coming together. This girl was the true darkness all along. Amaryllis begins to laugh like a maniac, staring down at her sister. She swears never to let go of her power, her brother or her father. But the next second, she starts to cough. Yeah, I don't think you'll be keeping any of them, bestie. That's what you get for trusting Horam. She's even more surprised that Ashtarte sees green blood covering her hands. Her vision starts to fade and her stomach aches. Her first thought is to find Miran and beg him for help, which is kind of sad actually, but she hardly takes 2 steps before she drops to the ground, just the same way her sister did. When her maid returns to the tea party expecting to find one dead princess, she instead finds two. While all this drama has been going on, poor Rion has been waiting outside, getting more worried by the minute. He would have stormed in already by now if he hadn't promised to keep his cool. Obviously, all sense of calm completely vanishes when the maid comes outside yelling that the princess has collapsed. Oh dear, I think we're about to see the real butcher of Elferman. He shoves her aside and sprints into the palace, rushing in to find both girls on the ground. He takes her in his arms, trying to find a pulse or a sign that she's breathing. Trying his best to stay calm, Rion picks her up, planning to take her to Isaiah. But the maid stops him, begging to take Princess Amaryllis with him. Are you joking? She's the reason for this whole mess. Rion already knows she's most likely the culprit of this whole thing, but he refuses to let her die quietly like this. If there's any chance of reviving, really, he wants to take it, just so he can kill her himself. Our golden hair angel gets to work right away, working a healing spell while Rion desperately clutches her hand. He cast a detoxification spell to rid her of the poison, but there's no way of knowing if it's worked just yet. Once Rion explains what happened, Isaiah looks to Amaryllis, still out cold on the couch. Isaiah seems very unwilling to treat her, so Priest Alan steps in to try and help. But his holy magic is completely repelled by Riley's homunculus energy. Wait, did the High Priest know this would happen? Was he trying to kill them both? When the Emperor hears, he's furious. Even though two of his best priests are working on his daughters, he can't accept that their lives are at risk. Miran tries to reassure him, but Noah can't sit still. Even if he can't do anything, he has to be there. Ashtarte said she might forgive him one day, and I have a feeling saving her life might speed up the process. When Miran tries to stop him, Noah accuses him of not caring for his sisters, and the Crown Prince hits him hard. Of course he's worried, but according to him, the best thing they can do is remain calm and work to save them from the palace. Before things can escalate, the Emperor shuts them both up by suggesting they all visit her together. Let's be honest, no one is going to be able to concentrate when they're so worried for the girls. And if you're wondering how our protagonist is doing, don't worry, she's not dead. She's out pretty bad though, and currently hearing a familiar voice. The voice tells her she's inside the land of dreams, and when she opens her eyes, she wakes up in a clearing surrounded by beautiful young women. Ashtarte doesn't recognize them, which makes sense because they're gods. Uh-oh, does that mean she's past the pearly gates? The gods reassure her that everything is fine. They've been watching over her for a long time, and even gave her the name Ashtarte to her mother in a dream. She doesn't understand what makes her so special, but the gods say she has a pure heart. They wanted to give her more love than she could dream of after her first life, which is why they sent down the oracle about the light of Firenze. But we all know how that went. The prophecy was originally sent to the deputy priest, but Horam killed him and took the fate of the empire into his own hands. So it really has been him all along. Ashtarte asks the gods how he tampered with the prophecy, but they can't tell her much. They don't want to meddle with the mortal world too much, and tell her to return to reality if she wants to know the truth. Isn't that just typical? Why are deities always so vague? Ashtarte seems just as frustrated as we are, so one of the gods gives her one last clue. Apparently, there was one person who saw what happened on that fateful day and ran away without the high priest noticing. Who could it be? Back in the land of the living, people are really worried for the princess. She's been out cold since the poisoning and still hasn't regained any of her color. Rion looks more tired than anyone. He explains to a frantic Loena that the princess was given a deadly poison that has no antidote. Isaiah wasn't able to completely neutralize it, so there's no way to be sure of how or when she'll recover. Isn't that cheerful? He tells her to get some rest so that when she finally wakes up, all her loved ones can be ready to greet her. But he doesn't seem sure himself that she actually will wake up. Her cheek is cold to the touch, reminding him of all those years ago when his family was slaughtered. He starts to cry, begging her not to leave him alone as his tears drip onto her cheek. There was something he wanted to tell her, he says, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Oh my gosh, you guys, I can't. This is too heartbreaking. He confesses his feelings for her as the tears stream down his face. He doesn't know it, but Isaiah is listening at the door. He even brought flowers, but after hearing Rion's confession, he clenches them in his fist. Alan catches him by the door and asks why he's standing outside. Even if it feels uncomfortable to butt in, it's even more awkward to just stand there waiting. As Alan points out, the flowers he prepared are cast with recovery spells, but Isaiah changes the topic to ask about Amaryllis instead. Yes, how is the little murderess holding up? Alan Alan can't say much about her condition at this stage, since High Priest Horam has taken her under his personal care. Even before he did, Alan could feel something strange about her. Clearly, Isaiah is still thinking about Ashtarte and Rion because he completely ignores everything his friend just said and asks how he should obtain that which he truly desires. At the moment, it feels hopeless. Not only does Rion care for her, but he knows she likes him back. He ends up leaving the flowers at the door for Rion to find when he steps out. An attendant approaches him with an update on the case, suggesting that the High Priest was involved in the poisoning. You'll never believe this, but it's actually Leon, Isaac's brother, who gave them the missing piece. He knows there was a priest who fled Firenze, a priest who proclaimed that Ashtarte was the light of the Empire instead of Amaryllis. Rion is intrigued, but he doesn't pause to think on it. Right now, there's someone he needs to see. And that someone is none other than the High Priest, who is currently having a tantrum in his temple. He's furious that Riley's maid almost gave him away. If she hadn't run for help, then she wouldn't have been seen by Alan, who almost realized something was wrong. His freaky friend with the mask is back, offering to help him sort out this whole mess. But Horam says he can handle it himself, right when Rion walks in. And he's not here to shoot the breeze. This man is out for blood. He's already drawn his sword. Horam scrambles to act natural and does a pretty poor job. Rion openly blames him for Ashtarte's health and warns him that if she doesn't recover, he'll take revenge on her behalf. Horam is sweating. He reminds the Duke that you're not supposed to walk into the temple without permission. But I think anyone can tell Rion doesn't care about the rules at this point. Just to prove it, he lifts his sword to the High Priest's neck, wondering if he'll feel better once Horam is dead. Damn, I forgot how scary he can be. Horam drops to the floor and starts shouting about blasphemy and how it's offensive to attack a priest. Rion coldly reminds him that a sinner's sins will always find them, and then storms out, slamming the door behind him. Is anyone else a little disappointed? I kinda wanted to see Horam get what he deserves. Once he's gone, the masked man remarks that he has quite the imposing presence. Horam immediately turns to him and asks him for help. So I guess all that about handling it himself was just talk, huh? The masked man, whose name is Reynold, leans down in the creepiest way possible and asks for his request. I can already tell this is going to end badly. Back at the palace, Miran and his father are listening to Ashtarte's breathing, trying to tell if she's recovered or not. Noah pulls them away, telling them to give her space, and the conversation turns to the other princess, the one they all seem to have forgotten about. Horam has spread the word that she's recovering, but there's no way to know if that's true. Just like her sister, she still hasn't woken up yet. The head maid has been charged with the crime of poisoning the princesses, but she keeps pleading her innocence. The Emperor has been feeling burdened lately by his past actions towards his daughter. Given everything that's happened, he understands why she won't call him father, but that doesn't mean he loves her any less. They're all worried, but there's no need to be. Ashtarte is just now being sent back to the mortal world with the reassurance of the gods that they will protect her. As the lead goddess bids her farewell, her appearance transforms, revealing her true identity as Ashtarte's mother. The poor girl wakes up with tears running down her face, still crying out for her. But at least she's awake. Her family hurried to call for a priest, delighted that she's awake. Ashtarte is the only one who isn't happy. She was hoping to see Rion before anyone else. Fortunately, this man has a sixth sense for all things Ashtarte and already knows she's awake. While he's rushing to her side, Isaiah has finally revealed the truth about Amaryllis to the Emperor and the princes. Of course, it sounds totally insane to them. Actually, it sounds like treason, especially without proof. That's when Alan steps forward and announces that his magic was deflected when treating the princess. Plus, really refused to be baptized, so I don't know, but all that sounds pretty suspicious to me. Of course, the Emperor won't hear any of it. That means there's only one way to prove it, by bringing them a sample of her bright green blood. Obviously, that's a slightly sensitive request, but Isaiah is brave enough to ask that he be allowed to treat her personally in order to do so. To everyone's surprise, the Emperor agrees. So that night, Isaiah comes to see Ashtarte, who was really hoping it was Rion. Ouch. But Isaiah doesn't care. He gives her a huge hug, surprising the princess. He even apologizes for not being Rion and begs to stay like that for just a moment longer. Poor guy. Just then, the real Rion appears and grabs Isaiah, pulling him away from Ashtarte. Instead of, I don't know, checking on her to see if she's okay, he scolds Isaiah for acting overly friendly with the princess. Guys, now is really not the time for a fight. The only thing that breaks them up is Ashtarte having a coughing fit. After that, Luena pays a visit and brings her some tea. She is just the right person to keep the boys at bay, warning them not to misbehave while she's recovering. Damn right! Ashtarte then asks the guys for help, charging them with the task of finding the priest who ran from the temple on the day of the prophecy. Lucky for her, Rion is already on it. That's the final straw for Isaiah, who storms out, determined to find another way to help the princess. He goes straight to Asmodeus' temple, where Horam is already waiting to greet him. The high priest finds a very polite way to refuse him entry, saying there's no longer any reason for him to visit. And if that sounds ominous to you, that's because it is. The next moment, he reveals that Princess Amaryllis has passed away. That evil man! Was this his plan all along? Turns out Miran was right behind him. He forces his way inside, screaming for his sister, who's already laid out in her coffin. Geez, they didn't wait around, did they? Horam is practically grinning as Miran demands answers. While he's shaking the high priest, Isaiah has noticed that Riley's body has been drained of blood. Almost like someone got rid of it on purpose to hide the evidence. Wait, seriously? So now there's no way to prove that she was the villain? I can't believe it! Just as Isaiah is giving up, he spots Horam's brooch on the ground. The priest is now claiming that the princes should be grateful to him. The prophecy has finally been fulfilled, proving that Ashtarte would end Amaryllis and bring ruin to the empire. Is that something to be grateful for? This guy is insane. As if that wasn't crazy enough, he opens the door to reveal smoke rising from the imperial palace. There's already a mob forming at the gates, demanding Ashtarte's death. That's the power of black magic. I guess Reynold proved his abilities after all, and now he's after Rion. How did everything go so wrong so fast? Just a few chapters ago, people were starting to believe Ashtarte might be good, and now everything is up in flames. Kneeling beside his sister's coffin, Noah recalls the words of the prophecy all those years ago. Tears stream from his eyes as he says a final goodbye. From the outside, it seems as though everything turned out just the way it was foretold. Ashtarte rose up and swallowed her sister, the light of Firenze, and with it, the hope of the empire. The commoners are already storming the palace, determined to kill Ashtarte. Things are looking dark. Luena and the other maids have taken up weapons to defend themselves. It's kind of crazy. I mean, we all knew she didn't have the best reputation, but for people to be swarming the palace so quickly with such intensity, it's like they're possessed. Their first priority, of course, is to get Ashtarte into hiding, but she's refusing to go anywhere until Rion arrives. Uh-oh, now is not the time for romance, girlie! But you have to cut her some slack. I mean, a heck of a lot has happened in the last 24 hours, and we all know they weren't close, but her sister's still dead, and in such a sad and violent way. Maybe in another life they weren't so far apart. If things had been different, could they have been friends? I guess now we'll never know. Her musing is interrupted when the wall behind her shatters into pieces. Oh God, is it the mob? Thankfully, no, it's Rion, who for some reason decided not to use the door like a normal person. And he's brought good news. He found the priest who fled Firenze after the prophecy was misinterpreted. He can see that she's scared and promises to protect her no matter what. Hand in hand, they escape the palace, evacuating through a back passage with the rest of the servants and knights. The staff stay hidden in Firenze, all except Veronica, who insisted on following Ashtarte when she found out they were pursuing the priest. They also get help from Leon, who promises to guide them through the country towards San Siberia, where someone is apparently waiting for her. Their goal is Dussel Bay, near the northern border of Firenze and San Siberia, which, if you didn't know, is Isaiah's homeland. Rion already met him earlier that day, offering to take him with them. Though he was grateful, he decided to stay behind to take care of some unfinished business. Ashtarte is clearly worried about him, but as Victoria reminds them, time is of the essence. The mob will soon realize she's left the Empress's palace, and they don't want to be around when those lunatics start searching the streets. The three of them hop in a carriage and are on their way in minutes. While racing through the streets, they can see smoke rising from her palace. Yikes! Those riders really mean business! While she's staring out the carriage, Rion can't shake the uncomfortable feeling that she has more affection for Isaiah than he realized. What if he's not the only one in her heart? Being vague as heck as always, he tells her there's something he wants to say once this whole mess is over. Like any girl would, Ashtarte wants him to tell her now. but she agrees to stay by his side until the right moment and be patient. She's way better than me. I would have beaten it out of him by now. As a matter of fact, I would have already confessed about 20 chapters ago. The next day, the Horam visits the king to discuss Rilly's death. He claims to have done everything he could to treat her, but sadly, he couldn't save her. He even acts like her blood just dried up as a sign of some kind of dark magic being used on her. What a load of baloney! Are they really going to fall for this? Miran and Noah confirm that she has no blood left in her body, but no one seems to realize that was done by a human and not some evil spell. The high priest looks almost ecstatic. At last, the prophecy has been fulfilled, which means it's time to summon Ashtarte and put an end to her sad little life. The royal family do not look convinced, but Horam is sure his plan will succeed. Even if they hesitate, the king surely can't ignore the hundreds of angry citizens at his gates demanding her death. It would cause an outrage. It might even spark a civil war. The only other person who might stand in their way is the Duke of Elframan, but it seems Reynald has a plan of his own to take care of him. And as for Ashtarte, the priest doesn't actually want to kill her. According to the true prophecy, Firenze's prosperity rests entirely on her staying alive. But if he could control her like a bird in a cage, then he would have more power than any man in the Empire. His evil schemes are so close to coming true. Horam can almost taste victory on his tongue. But then the king points out a small but very important fact. He's not wearing the insignia of the high priest. Without that, there's no proof that he's Horam at all. He could be one of the rioters impersonating the priest. On the king's command, he's dragged out of the throne room and told to find that emblem, or else he shouldn't bother coming back at all. That should keep him busy for a while, especially since Isaiah is the one who has it. This was all his plan. While the high priest is being held on suspicion of impersonation, they don't have to listen to him, and they can keep his movements restricted. That should give Ashtarte time to escape Firenze, and take some pressure off the king. None of the royal family truly believe that she killed her sister. It's unthinkable. But the mob is a very pressing issue. Isaiah advises the king to station some soldiers in the city to keep things from erupting in the streets. He reassures the king that his daughter will be taken care of. As much as he hates to admit it, Rion would never let anyone harm her. Meanwhile, the escaping trio have just reached their first checkpoint. Ashtarte is worried about being discovered because of her distinctive hair color. But a small bag of coins is enough to bribe the guards and let them leave the city limits without inspection. So much for a knight's honor. Relieved, Ashtarte gives Rion a little pat on the head for getting them through safely, which is kind of cute. Such a big, strong man probably doesn't get head pats very often. They reach Dussel Bay later that evening, just as the sun is beginning to set. Only it's not quite what they expected. And by that, I mean it's literally just a field. But this place has a special sentimental value for Veronica. She starts explaining her pretty tragic backstory, involving a close friend of hers from many years ago named Azalea. From the way Veronica describes her, it kind of seems like they were a little more than friends, if you catch my drift. Anyway, Azalea was very special to her and had a very pure heart. But on the day of Ashtarte's prophecy, she was killed. Distraught, Veronica turned to the high priest for answers and was told Azalea incurred the wrath of God for committing a heresy. You see, she was deputy priest at the time, the same deputy priest who was sent the original true prophecy by the goddesses. You don't need me to tell you the rest. Azalea relayed the prophecy and Horam murdered her in cold blood. This new priest, the one who's escaped that they're hunting now, might have more answers for Veronica, who can't be sure what happened. Of course, like the rest of us, she's already kind of guessed. But if the priest could act as a witness to the crime, then they could be able to reveal the truth to Firenze and avenge her friend. That's why she wanted to join them so badly. A few minutes later, their guards returned with bad news. A search of the nearby residential areas turned up nothing matching the priest. But that doesn't mean they're not hiding somewhere. At the perfect moment, they notice a temple nearby and decide to search there instead. Rion starts antagonizing them, loudly accusing the priest of hiding like a rat in such a squalid place. Well, I don't think that's going to work. To their surprise, however, the temple seems to be in good condition. It looks comfortable, far more comfortable than the rooms Ashtarte spent her childhood in. It's hard not to be resentful, but she can't regret the way things turned out. If the prophecy was told truthfully, then she never would have met all the amazing people she has today, including Rion. Though he seems pretty certain they would have found each other one way or another. Because he's her destiny. Only a man like Rion could get away with a line like that. And a man like Rion isn't usually the patient type. On that note, he gives the hiding priest 5 seconds to reveal himself, and then blows up half the temple after 2. He's not the most subtle, but at least his plan worked. The hiding priest comes sprinting down the aisle and gets tripped up by the guards. As soon as he sees Ashtarte, he starts to cry. He must have known this day was coming for a long time. At last, we get a flashback to that fateful day in Asmodeus Temple 17 years ago. This green-haired priest, whose name is Joseph, was a low-ranking member of the clergy who answered to Azalea, the deputy head at the time. They had a close bond. He was sure she'd be picked for the head priest one day and was confident that she would bring peace to Firenze. While he was headed back to his room, a blinding flash of light struck the temple from the sky, signaling that someone was receiving an oracle. Curious, he ran into the hall, hoping to get a glimpse. That was where he found Azalea and heard every word of the prophecy. She had only just reported it to the high priest when Horam stabbed her from behind like a coward. Having witnessed this horrible crime, Joseph knew his life was in danger. He couldn't think past his fear and ran as far as his legs would take him. Of course, he's lived in regret since that day, wondering if he could have saved Azalea's life if he was just a bit braver. Not to mention Ashtarte, who could have lived as a true princess all this time if he'd just spoken up. But he was worried that he might not be believed. Horam was popular in Firenze at the time. What if they condemned him as a heretic and framed him for Azalea's murder instead? A small part of Ashtarte feels sympathy for him, but only a small part. After all, it's because of this man that she was ignored by her family, named as the ruin of Firenze, and despised all these years. She doesn't owe him anything. Now she gives him a chance to redeem himself. If he truly regretted his actions, then he would do the right thing by joining forces with her and bringing the high priest to justice. They have enough on Horam to have him imprisoned for life, but they need Joseph, the final piece to complete this puzzle and testify as a witness against him. He seems hesitant until Veronica hands over her locket with a picture of Azalea. He can't say no after that. With their chief witness finally captured, the gang turns their sights back on Firenze. It's time to put Horam behind bars once and for all. Speaking of, the high priest is struggling to come with terms with his plan going awry. He wasn't expecting so many people to come out and stand against him. And this issue with the emblem is a serious problem. No matter how hard he searches, he just can't seem to find it. Thank goodness Isaiah had that bright idea to steal it. The priest keeps asking Reynold to help him, but such a powerful black magic master refuses to deal with something so trivial. He's finding the whole situation kind of amusing. Horam went to all this effort to take control of the empire, spreading a fake prophecy, creating a homunculus, but it's all falling apart anyway. Still, the high priest refuses to give up. He sets his sights on Ashtarte instead of the emblem, so Reynold offers to capture her for him. The priest is a little suspicious as to why someone as unhinged as Reynold is willing to help him, but it's clear this guy just does whatever he thinks will be entertaining. Plus, if he gets to kill the Duke of Elferman, then he'll do just about anything. Already racing back to Firenze, Ashtarte and Rion once again find themselves in a somewhat compromising situation. The carriage is so shaky that they keep getting thrown into each other. Rion doesn't mind one bit, but our poor princess is having trouble concentrating. I mean, can you blame her? The more nervous she gets, the less she can meet his eye. He suddenly pulls her close, asking if something's wrong, clearly enjoying her red cheeks and nervous glances. He tells her it's because he's happy. Just looking at her makes him want to smile like an idiot. That makes Ashtarte relax just enough to ask him that all-important question. Does he like her? You know, in that way? He doesn't answer right away, asking why she's so curious. Hello? You flirt with this woman like your life depends on it. You're practically her personal knight. What girl wouldn't be curious? She admits that it would be nice if he did like her, which leads him to ask a question of his own. Does she like him? Oh my god, these two are exhausting. Someone needs to pluck up the courage and just say it already. She's just about convinced Rion to say it first when the carriage jolts again, and this time it's not a little bump in the road, it's an ambush. Great, just when we were about to make some progress. Rion goes into action mode immediately, looking outside to assess the threat. What he's probably not expecting to see is a cloaked mage hovering 10 feet in the air. Looks like Reynold found them pretty fast. He makes a beeline for Rion, eager to introduce himself to the Duke. Technically, they've met before. When Rion was threatening the High Priest, he was there at the back of the room. For a moment, he's curious about Joseph, hiding just a few feet away. But his interest dissipates when he remembers his mission is to leave only the princess alive. The guards try to push Ashtarte to safety, but she hesitates, until she sees the cocky smirk on Rion's face, that is. She should really have a little more faith in her man. He's literally a war hero. He has fought in countless battles. His reputation as a ruthless knight precedes him. I guess she forgot since she's never seen that side of him. Well, I'm sure she's grateful for it now. But Reynold is no joke himself, and he already knows all about the Duke from buying information on him. As if that wasn't bad enough, he's found a way to mimic Rion's magic for himself, eliminating his advantage. Though it's not nearly as strong as Rion's, which he proves by destroying Reynold's advance in just one blow. Suddenly, Reynold is on the back foot. No matter what he casts, the Duke casts it better, stronger, until his enemy is on his knees before him. Despite the defeat, Reynold is still giggling like a psychopath. He waits for just the right moment before pulling a dagger from his boot and stabbing himself? What the heck just happened? As his life drains away, he smiles, warning the Duke that their battle isn't over yet. Black tendrils of magic begin to engulf Rion. He must be using himself as a sacrifice to power some ancient kind of forbidden curse. The next thing he knows, Rion's vision fades to black and he drops to the ground. Uh-oh, who's going to protect our princess now? Whatever Reynold did, he seems to have unlocked a world of painful memories. Reliving them is so traumatic that Rion's magic starts to run wild, beyond his control. Ashtarte watches, terrified as it threatens to swallow him up. She can't just stand by and watch, so she runs towards him, straight into the blinding blue light. The poor guards must think she's gone mad, but the truth is, there's no one else but her who can pull Rion from his madness. He's just about to give up, trapped inside his head and thinking there's nothing left to live for. And then Ashtarte appears as her younger self, like the first time they met. She reaches out a hand, reminding him of all the memories they've shared, all the pain they've been through together, and more importantly, the promises they made to each other. Returning to himself, he just takes her hand, just as Reynold reaches out and grabs him with the last of his strength. But it's too late now. Nothing can separate these two. With a simple click of his fingers, Rion uses his magic to destroy Reynold completely, which seems to be kind of what the sicko wanted. Ugh. When the dust settles, he's gone, and the Duke and his princess are holding each other unharmed. He thanks her for saving him and is about to give the answer to her question from the carriage when he faints. Oh my god, this can't keep happening! Back in Firenze, anti-Ashtarte sentiment is at an all-time high. Everyone is expecting the High Priest to catch the Star of Darkness and put an end to this evil spreading through the city. Meanwhile, Isaiah just received word that Ashtarte is on her way back. She just passed the Siberia border checkpoint. He's relieved to hear that she's alive, and that she must have accomplished her mission since she's returning to Firenze. That means things might be put right at last, and when that happens, Isaiah himself will have no reason to stay in the Empire. Which is kind of sad. Will he be brave and take one last chance to win the princess's heart before he goes? Speaking of the princess, she and Rion just stepped out of the carriage, where the mood in the city is heavy with anticipation. They overhear a young boy fighting with a man in the street. It's none other than Isaac, and he's defending her, trying to convince the older man that the princess has done nothing wrong. Aw, what a little hero! He's about to smack Isaac, and Ashtarte almost steps in. Luckily, Rion reminds her this is no time to be exposing herself, and besides, Isaac has enough support elsewhere, namely from his brother Leon. It seems there are still some people on her side after all. Ashtarte is so shocked to hear them stand up for her that she starts to cry. Rion isn't the best with emotion, so he sort of just stands there looking stupid. He hugs her and asks her to cheer up. They're almost at the end now, just one final push. Back at the palace, the king has already been notified of his daughter's return and sent Noah ahead to the temple. The final showdown is about to begin. When Noah arrives at the temple, he informs the priests that the royal family are officially ready to pass judgment on the princess. Immediately, Horam falls back into character, believing his plans to be back on track. He is, however, surprised to hear that Ashtarte arrived safely back in Firenze. He thought Reynold was more powerful than that. I guess everyone underestimated Rion's power. The priest can tell that Noah is hiding something, but honestly, he doesn't care. As far as he's aware, there's no proof of his crime, and he has half the citizens of the Empire calling for Ashtarte's death. There's no way he could lose now. Oh, how wrong he is. But just in case, he's bringing a gilded dagger along with him. Probably the same one he used to kill Azalea. He truly is an evil man. How the heck did this guy end up as a high priest anyway? The angry citizens who've been crowding the gates all day are delighted to see the palace gates opening at last. Finally, it's time to avenge Riley, or at least, that's what they think. Inside the Empress's palace, Luena is relieved to see Ashtarte in the flesh, alive and unharmed after her travels. And she's not the only one who was worried. The whole entourage is teary-eyed at the sight of her. Unfortunately, there's no time for a reunion. The palace gates have been opened, which means the mob will already be on their way. They need to get to the main palace for the big reveal. But since it's such a big event, shouldn't they dress her up a little? I mean, maybe the crowd will be easier to sway if she looks extra beautiful. I'm not sure there's much logic to it, but Rion gives in, allowing them 15 minutes to mold Ashtarte into the shape of a true princess. They even procured one of the late Empress's dresses for the occasion. Add one very special hairpin from her mother and the look is complete. When she steps back outside, she looks like a goddess. Rion clearly thinks so. Just look at that blush. He's so flustered he can hardly speak for a moment. When he does get his tongue untied, he says she's so pretty that he doesn't want anyone else to see her. He always has the perfect lines. I don't know how Ashtarte is still on her feet. He also made a little more effort by tying her black ribbon on his wrist. Meanwhile, the royal family have made something of a spectacle within the palace gates. They and Isaiah are standing in front of a guillotine, with the crowd getting more anxious by the moment. Half of them want to see her dead, but there are still a few who have been touched by her kindness and are begging the king for mercy. It's not the king, but Horam who makes the welcome speech, really playing up his role as the Lord's emissary on Earth. Honestly, I'm so sick of this guy. Can't we just skip to the good bit and slice his head off instead? But since this is Ashtarte's stage, it's only fair she gets to make a spectacle. While the crowd are clamoring for her, the princess is hidden among them in a robe at the back. When Rion gives her the signal, she sheds her cloak, revealing her night black hair for all to see. Her family watch her from the stage, clearly worried. Though no one is more scared than Isaiah and Rion, Ashtarte herself seems strangely calm. Her whole life has been leading up to this moment. This is her one and only chance to set the record straight and change her fate for good. It's kind of funny hearing the crowd's reactions. She's so beautiful that people can hardly believe she's the darkness from the prophecy. Seems like Luena's tactic actually worked. With the biggest smile she can muster, she greets Horam as high priest, playing dumb and asking what all this commotion is for. According to the priest, they've gathered to pass judgment and right the wrongs of Firenze. Well, technically he's not wrong, he just doesn't realize it's his wrongs they're judging. Hearing the high priest speak of executions makes Rion clench his fists. But this isn't his battle, it's Ashtarte's. Moving things along, the king signals the start of the hearing, asking Horam to make his case for persecuting the princess. He immediately starts spouting the same old prophecy, claiming that it must be true since Amaryllis has died. But to everyone's surprise, he announces that he has no intention of harming Ashtarte. After all, how could a holy man such as the high priest take a life? Instead, he wants her to live in the temple beside him where she can spend her life repenting for her sins. Maybe he just wants to take her hostage, but he doesn't have to be so creepy about it. The royal family are clearly confused, and so are the crowd. In their minds, Ashtarte is an evil that needs to be wiped out, or else she may be a danger to others in future. Horam assures them he's not afraid of the princess. He just wants to keep a close eye on her. Seriously, this guy gives me the shakes. Ashtarte puts an end to his dramatic monologue by announcing that she did not kill Amaryllis. She drank the same poison as her sister that day and believes it was an attempt to kill them both. The high priest points out that there's no evidence to prove her innocence, at which point the princess laughs. Since he seems to care so much about evidence, where is his? While the crowd hangs on her every breath, Ashtarte tells all of Firenze that Horam never received a prophecy. In fact, he killed the one who did, the deputy high priest Azalea. Horam is clearly shook, but the crowd is divided. That's when Joseph steps forward, offering himself as a witness and even providing proof, the very dagger used to kill Azalea that day. Now the priest is truly shocked. He brought that dagger with him today. How could they have it? He says out loud that the dagger should be with him, and that's the moment where the crowd start to turn. He didn't deny any of what Joseph said. His only worry is where the weapon went. That's not the kind of thing an innocent man would say. At the back of the crowd, Rion is smiling. Horam fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Suddenly, bolts of lightning starts crashing down from the sky. The mob takes it as a sign that the gods are angry. As the rain starts to fall, the priest defends himself, claiming one witness is not enough to make a case. But as Ashtarte points out, there was more than one witness to his crime. The gods were there too, watching from above. A well-timed bolt of lightning hits her fingertip, making her look half divine herself. Now the crowd is really mad. The high priest they trusted is not only a liar, but also a murderer. Sensing that his time is up, Horam pulls out his dagger, determined to strike Ashtarte and deliver justice himself. Seconds before the blade lands, the king himself steps in and takes the blade. Oh my god! Poor Ashtarte is already crying, but her father just sees this as his duty. It's only right for a dad to protect his daughter. The dagger falls to the ground as Rion apprehends Horam, forcing him on his knees as the prince rushes towards their father. He's losing a lot of blood, and he's losing it fast. Ashtarte is furious and tells him such a stupid act like this won't earn her forgiveness. With the last few breaths, the king smiles. He knows that, but he's glad that he could protect her even just this once. He reaches out to her, apologizing for being a terrible father as the tears spill down her cheeks. In that moment, despite the hardship, despite the loneliness of her childhood, Ashtarte refuses to let him go. She can't lose anyone else, not when things are finally starting to fall back into place. With a flash of golden light, she calls down her magic from the heavens, saving him and clearing the skies at the same time. That's the final straw. No one could believe she was the darkness after that. What kind of darkness can call upon life-saving magic from the sky? Horam has long lost this battle, but he insists on screaming until the very end. It's Isaiah who manages to shut him up. Not only did he betray the sacred order of the priests, but he also deceived his people and even stabbed the king. There's no hope left for him now. While he mourns his fate, Ashtarte's entourage are crying tears of joy over her success. She's done her people proud, fulfilled her prophecy, and even managed to bag herself a strapping young man while doing so. Do you think they'll finally get to confessing now? After that, things move pretty smoothly. The king strips Horam of his title, orders his tongue to be cut out, and imprisons him in the dungeon for the rest of his life. Kind of harsh, but could anyone say he doesn't deserve it? Despite her success, Ashtarte has some unfinished business with the ex-priest, and decides to go and see him herself to tie up some loose ends. Nobody wants her to go, but with Alec by her side, she's sure she'll be safe. Besides, what can he do from behind bars? While wandering through the dungeons, they stumble upon an unexpected guest. Joseph came to speak to Horam, begging him to apologize for his crimes. The ex-priest says nothing until he sees Ashtarte and starts to freak out. She can't tell what he's trying to mumble through the gag around his mouth, but she asks her questions anyway. Everything she wants to know boils down to a simple, why? Why did he condemn her to a life of solitude and misery? Did he really hate her and Amaryllis that much? And does he feel any kind of guilt towards them for his crimes? After that, Horam starts laughing, which is an answer in itself, I guess. I'm not sure if it'll give her closure, but at least she tried. Turning her back on the prisoner, she tells Joseph not to waste any more time down here and turns for the door. There's someone else he should beg forgiveness from. Later that evening, Veronica and Joseph visit Azalea's grave, where she lays her pendant on the tombstone. It might seem harsh to bring him here, but maybe Joseph can find peace now that the matter is settled. While she's watching from the side, Isaiah approaches Ashtarte, announcing his departure to Sen Siberia. He'll be heading back tomorrow, but before he goes, he wants to tell the truth. He confesses straight up, admitting that he likes her. A lot. Yeah, dude, we know. Literally the only one who doesn't know is Ashtarte. Back on the day of the hearing, when he saw her power beaming, he realized she had the ability to harness ancient magic. He was so happy to put this whole thing with Horam to rest, but that joy was quickly slashed when he saw Rion and the princess reuniting. It's not like he didn't already know where her heart lies, but it still hurts to see it. She starts to explain herself now, but Isaiah saves her the trouble. As long as he was able to help in some small way, then that's enough for him. He starts to walk away, still calling her name even as he goes. Damn, he was a true drama queen right until the end. How the heck is Rion supposed to follow a confession like that? Watching from a short distance away, he can't take his eyes off her, even as he's told the time has come to return to Nohe's. I almost forgot that all these handsome men were from faraway countries. Do they really all have to leave? Can't Rion just give up his dukedom and come live with her? The next morning, Ashtarte sees off Isaiah at the gates. She doesn't want him to disappear from her life. Even if she can't return his feelings, can't they at least stay friends? As he's boarding the carriage, he asks if there's somewhere else she should be right now. Like a bolt of lightning, Ashtarte suddenly realizes that Rion must be leaving too. She sprints as fast as she can in those pretty little heels of hers. But by the time she reaches the Empress's palace, it's too late. He left early this morning, without even saying goodbye? Well, that's not going to work. Those two can't be separated. They just can't be. Clearly, Ashtarte is thinking the same thing. She suddenly asks what would happen if she left Firenze for good. Before she even knows what's happening, her entire entourage has volunteered themselves to come with her. Now that's impressive. She's practically got a small army of followers. It's like she's an idol or something. They're all very worried about how they'll survive in Nohe's, but the princess doesn't seem concerned. She can go and ask Rion right now. That spell that first brought them together still works, remember? After all, they're each other's destiny. With a blinding flash of light, she's transported far away, directly inside his carriage, where she lands right on his lap. How convenient. While Rion is still trying to figure out what the heck just happened, she grabs a fistful of his jacket, scolding him for leaving her behind without a word. As she should. Back in Firenze, the nobles and commoners alike are finally putting the pieces together and realizing Ashtarte might have actually been the star of light from the prophecy. They're not the smartest bunch, are they? However, there are still naysayers who were so convinced by Horam that they don't believe the truth. It's really bothering Prince Noah, who wants to reveal the original true prophecy, even though the whole thing is over now. Prince Miran reminds him that they can't. The king said there's no need for any prophecies at all now. Things have been put right, so what's the point? Besides, if they reveal the truth, then they also have to reveal that Princess Amaryllis was a homunculus. She was so loved by the people, that would probably do more harm than good. The other thing bothering Noah is their sister's sudden departure. He's worried she might be gone for good, and that makes him sad. But as Miran points out, she has every right to run off if that's what she wants to do. They were part of the reason that she suffered so much as a child, and they promised to make up for those mistakes. So if she left, then they have to accept that. Does anyone else feel bad for these guys? They basically lost two sisters at once. They're still mourning Rilly, even though she was a monster, and they don't even have the right to get close to Ashtarte. It's kinda sad. Anyways, back to the carriage. Rion apologizes for leaving so suddenly and admits that he overheard her conversation with Isaiah. After that, he just couldn't ask her to pick him, so he decided to return, sort out his business in Nohe's, and come back for her. Though, obviously, that didn't happen. He's grateful that she came to find him instead and pulls her close, promising not to let go this time. Oh, finally, she asks him once more if he likes her. Instead of just admitting what we've all known for ages, he goes on a long journey through his traumatic childhood. For so many years, he had just one goal, to fulfill his father's wishes, stay alive, and become Emperor of Nohe's one day. But then he met Ashtarte and his life took on a whole new meaning. So to answer her question, no, he doesn't like her. He loves her. Whoop, that's a little stronger than she was expecting. After a moment of shock, Ashtarte does what any girl would do in her position, and she kisses him. Finally! I was starting to think they'd never get together. Fast forward to a few weeks later, Ashtarte is staying in the Elferman residence in Nohe's with her loyal fan club beside her. The only person who's not beside her is Rion. He keeps leaving on these missions, so they haven't had much time to talk, let alone all the other things young couples are supposed to do. Of course, it's natural that he's busy, and it's not like she doubts his love for her, but isn't it time for this man to give her a ring already? His long absences are partially explained by the political situation in Nohe's, which is pretty tense right now. A new emperor just ascended the throne, and a pagan cult have been attacking people on the street. So you can see why the Duke has been a little caught up. However, this also has consequences for Ashtarte, because the religious group, whose name is Sorteria, follow a princess with black hair just like her. So now she's not even allowed to go and take a walk in case people mistake her for the princess and she gets kidnapped. Ashtarte can't help but be curious about someone with the same unique hair color as her. But before she can ask any questions, the Duke's return is announced. And guess who he brought with him? None other than the very princess we just mentioned. Hang on, is this guy collecting girls with black hair or something? Why did he bring her back to the estate? Seeing how she leans on him for comfort and how he doesn't shake her off makes Ashtarte upset. Understandably. Embarrassed, she runs away for some much-needed alone time. She obviously knows Rion loves her, but it's hard not to get in her head, especially when their relationship is still so new. What she doesn't realize is that Rion's relationship to the Princess of Soteria is almost non-existent. He only saved her because he thought her hair was black, but it turns out it's more like dark blue. Even when she cries and begs him to stay, he coldly shakes her off and announces that the Emperor will come to take her away soon. If only Ashtarte had seen that! He immediately goes to find her in the gardens, promising he wasn't trying to make her upset. He also promises that he only has eyes for her and tells her once again that he loves her. In the middle of his rather dramatic speech, she murmurs something about loving him back. It's only then that he realizes she's fallen asleep. Oh, Ashtarte, she can't have been that upset. The tension is gone immediately, and he starts laughing. Not wanting her to get sick, he wraps her up in his cloak and carries her straight back to her room. When she wakes up a few hours later, our princess is mortified. But as Luena points out, this would be a good time to talk to him about their relationship. Maybe confessing that she loves him back would be a good start, while she's actually conscious this time. Downstairs, the Duke is having a serious conversation with Joshua, the Emperor of Nohayes, who is asking him to house the Princess of Soteria, just for a little longer until the outrage dies down. But even with the pressure from the citizens, Rion declines. He never was the type to take orders very well. The Princess of Soteria refuses point blank to be taken to the palace. She wants to stay by the Duke's side. Not because she likes him, but because he uses the same kind of ancient magic that she does. In an instant, Rion is on his feet with his hand around her throat. Well, that took things up a notch. It seems like Rion has a serious grudge against those who wield his kind of magic, and even attempted to wipe them all out. It seems this princess is the last remaining survivor. But there's another question. How did she know about the nature of his magic? Everyone knows he's powerful, but not many people have seen him wield it. Before the princess can answer, not like she could anyway with his hand around her throat, the Emperor orders Rion to calm down. As usual, the Duke completely ignores his superior and asks if she truly has the same powers as him. The princess says yes and promises she didn't hear it from anyone else. It was only when she saw him using ancient magic that she knew they were the same. Just then, Ashtarte walks in to find her knight in shining armor with his hands around the poor girl's neck. Just a few hours ago, he was carrying her to bed. Where did that kind young gentleman go? As soon as Ashtarte's on the scene, Rion gets a hold of himself. The four of them sit down to discuss the situation and fill her in on what's happened. When she's heard the full story, she only has one question. Why does the Princess of Soteria want to stay by the Duke's side so badly? Emperor Joshua is planning discussions with the sect leader, which should put an end to the riots and help keep her safe. But for some reason, the princess is convinced that it won't work. Her expression darkens, and she notices Ashtarte's hair. It's a similar color to her own. Suddenly, she accuses her of being a spy sent by the sect leader, which is really not a good move if she wants to stay in the Duke's house. Seeing Rion's anger rise again, she apologizes at once. Ashtarte formally introduces herself, but when it comes to explaining her relationship with Rion, she draws a blank. I mean, what are they really? Lovers? Dating? Old friends? It's not like they put any labels on it, and he certainly hasn't asked her any questions. In the end, she settles on guest, which takes the Duke by surprise. The princess, on the other hand, doesn't bat an eye and introduces herself as Chaziel, Princess of Soteria. But her position isn't quite as pretty as it sounds. She was noticed for her magical abilities from a young age, so the sect leader used her to protect the priests from harm. It kinda seems like he used her for a lot more than just her powers. Just one look at this girl and you can tell she's been through a lot. She ran away as soon as she was old enough to fend for herself, but by then, she'd already lost too much. As for Rion's part in all this, Turns out she doesn't actually want his protection, she wants revenge, specifically on the leader of her sect. She lifts her fringe, revealing a long scar across one eye that seems to have taken her sight. See? I told you guys she'd been through a lot. Shaking, she begs Rion and Ashtarte to help her get revenge so that she can put the past behind her and move on with her life. But Ashtarte refuses. If she wants revenge, she'll have to do it herself. She even offers to teach her magic to do it. The Duke and the Emperor are shocked, but frankly, wouldn't this benefit them as well? With the maniacal sect leader gone, the power of the Sotarians would disappear, as would the riots. In the end, Chazael accepts her offer and returns to the palace for the time being. After they've gone, Rion asks why she decided to help her. At first, Ashtarte thought it was pity. She'd been in that place before, full of rage and wanting to get even. But the truth is actually simpler than that. She just wanted more time alone with Rion without another woman walking around in the house. Pretty girl boss, if you think about it. She's about to take Luena's advice and finally confess that she loves him back. But right then, Rion brings up that issue. The fact that she called herself his guest earlier. Uh-oh, here we go again. It's always one step forward and 3 steps back with these two. Ashtarte can tell her words have struck deep, but she asks him, were they really untrue? Rion says yes, confidently, but when it comes to giving them a label, he can't quite put his finger on it. Now would be a perfect time to ask for her hand in marriage. Seriously, what is this guy waiting on? The conversation kind of ends at a standstill, with no real progress being made. The next day, Ashtarte visits Chazael at the palace for her first magic lesson. It's immediately clear that she has talent and is capable of reading ancient tomes to a decent standard. However, she still can't read Siberian, which is the language that will truly unlock her ability to use divine magic. Of course, divine magic isn't exactly what she's looking for. Since she wants to hurt the sect leader, divine magic is useless to her because it can't actually hurt people. But what it can do is give her the power to protect herself. Ashtarte wants to transfer the gift she earned as a child, the magic that became a source of strength for her. But reading Siberian makes her think of Isaiah, and she suddenly wonders how he would have responded to the question she asked Rion. Oh girl, don't go there. We all know that's a slippery slope. We get to see a little more of their conversation, where she asked him if they were just old friends. Rion was even more hurt by that and said he thought of them as lovers. But that's not exactly a long-term label. And when she asked how long they could stay lovers for, Rion said forever. Does this man know women at all? He should have said something like, until I make you my wife. That would have got her going. But Ashtarte wasn't exactly helping herself. She still hasn't said she loves him back yet. The memory is still bothering her during Chazael's lesson, so noticeably that the princess asks what's bothering her. While the girls are talking boy trouble, Emperor Joshua and Rion are having tea in the Imperial Gardens, discussing the arrangement between Chazael and Ashtarte. The conversation turns to Rion and the matter of his dukedom. The last time these two saw each other, he promised to disappear, as if he had no desire to live. Certainly not in this empire anyway. It seems a certain lady changed his mind about that. They move on to discussing the sect leader, who is clearly riling up his followers on purpose to challenge Joshua. It's a pretty serious conversation, but Rion still can't think about anything other than Ashtarte. At least he's consistent. Out of nowhere, he asks Joshua what his relationship with Ashtarte looks like from the outside. At first, Josh thought they were lovers, but after the tension between them the other day, he's not so sure. Now they're a bit more like siblings. Obviously, this is horrifying news to Rion, who immediately demands to know what made him think that way. Duh, it's the fact they're not engaged. At last, someone to burst the Duke's silly little bubble. With the way he's been acting, anyone would think he never even considered putting a ring on her finger. Rion leaves his chat with the Emperor feeling, well, a little moody. He thought lovers didn't have to get engaged, but as Joshua pointed out, love is supposed to grow. This is actually kind of sad if you think about it. Maybe because Rion lost his family at a young age, he didn't realize marriage is the happy ending for lovers. Speaking of family, considering the possibility that Ashtarte might actually leave him has brought some dark thoughts into his head. I mean, really dark, like hallucinating his dead family kind of dark. And they're saying some nasty things. Luckily, Rion is stable enough not to trust these hallucinations. His real family loved him, wanted him to be happy. That's something Ashtarte taught him. As the darkness dissipates, he watches a butterfly land on his finger and starts thinking about engagement rings. Well, that was quick. I guess he just needed a heart-to-heart with a bro, and confronting some serious family trauma, of course. Back in the palace, Ashtarte and Chazael are having a girly chat about how to get male attention. At first, the Princess of Soteria thinks she's trying to cheat on the Duke, which is kind of cute. At least someone thinks they're dating. They come up with a plan together. We'll have to see how that pans out. Rion, on the other hand, spends all night combing through shops trying to find a suitable ring. He comes back empty-handed, and if that wasn't enough, he overhears two of Ashtarte's maids talking about how her feelings towards him have changed. Some guys really just can't catch a break. The girl herself shows up a moment later, and she's cut her hair, which is kind of a crazy move. She clearly did it to get his attention, but as most guys know, girls usually cut their hair after a breakup. The poor guy's gonna have a heart attack. All of those fears from yesterday come running back, and now he's convinced she's about to leave him, while Ashtarte is convinced he hates her new hair. What a mess! She noticed everyone whispering about her and seems disappointed. She was only trying something new for his sake. As soon as he realizes that, Rion takes her hand and starts showering her with compliments. He gets all flustered, but manages to keep up the momentum, asking if they can finish that conversation from the other day once the Soteria sect is taken care of. She agrees, of course, and they part on better terms. Baby steps, guys. Baby steps. A few hours later, Rion walks in on his inner council discussing the ideal design for his future engagement band. Which is kinda sweet, but they're actually gathered to discuss the latest updates on the Soteria situation. All the devotees seem to be moving to the outskirts, as far away from the palace as possible. The sect leader, however, is keeping his head down and keeping quiet, which probably means he's gathering his forces waiting for the right time to strike. Now, time to decide on that ring design. After the Duke's initial reaction, Ashtarte was worried that she'd made the wrong decision with her short hair. But at their next lesson, Chazael assures her that it's perfect. Let's be honest, she'd look good in any style. She also apologizes for the mix-up about a haircut being a sign of a breakup. Apparently, that's a big thing in the Nohei's Empire, but since Chazael was confined from an early age, she didn't know about it. They're kind of similar in that regard. They both had very difficult childhoods. Maybe that's why Ashtarte is taking a liking to the princess. She's a lot more innocent than she seemed at first, and she's fast becoming a dedicated student. Their lessons are going well, and she's finally starting to relax in the palace. But then who should show up but the Soterian sect leader himself, the very man responsible for her painful past? Ashtarte leaps into Chazael's defense at once, but she's already freaking out. Just the sight of this guy has sent her into a full-blown panic attack. He must be truly evil. He also seems to know a concerning amount about Ashtarte. I guess he believed the rumors about her and thought she might be motivated by hate and revenge the same way the Soterians are. But she stands strong and points out all the ways in which they're different, angering the sect leader. He starts yelling, calling her weak, and gets so mad that he punches a literal tree in half. Apparently, all the Soterian followers have magical powers, not just the leaders or their princess. That's why they're isolated in the first place. People were scared of them and treated them cruelly. This guy must be one of the strongest. Chazael is so scared of him hurting Ashtarte that she agrees to come quietly without a fight. But Ashtarte won't let her go that easy. While the leader snuck into the palace, his followers were starting a riot out near the borders. The emperor himself went out to take care of it, only to come back and discover the whole thing was a diversion. And that's not all. The Duke himself is headed to the suspected base of the Soterian Order right this very second. Looks like Ashtarte went with Chazael, knowing she couldn't stop her from leaving. And wherever she goes, we all know Duke Elframan will follow. In a bizarre twist, the scene changes to Ashtarte's childhood, but it's not the same one we witnessed. In this universe, her mother is still alive, her family accepts her, and she's living happily as a princess. She goes to tea with her parents, her brothers dote on her. Everything is perfect, the way it could have been, except something feels missing. When she's walking back from the tea party, little Ashtarte asks Loena if things have always been this way. Her maid doesn't think much of the question and starts telling her about Isaiah Sen Siberia, who will be visiting soon. Hearing that name stirs something in Ashtarte, and Lowena says maybe it's her destiny. After all, Isaiah would make the perfect eternal partner for her, and that's where she realizes something is really wrong. Lowena doesn't believe in eternity. By now, you guys are probably wondering what all this is about. Well, as you might have guessed, the Soterian sect leader cast a spell to make her deepest dreams come true. And here's the catch. If she doesn't want to wake up, she never will. Yikes, that's twisted! While she's out cold, the sect leader commands Chazael to start making more medicine for the Soterians, like she used to, but she refuses. She doesn't want to be used anymore. Even when he shows her all the injured believers, she fights back, reminding him that he's the reason they got injured in the first place. When she continues to resist, he grabs a fistful of her hair, warning her not to defy him. He pulls out his knife, threatening to take her other eye, and for a second, she just stands there shaking. Then she remembers Ashtarte, how kind she was and how she rooted for the princess. Just knowing there was someone who believed in her, someone who wanted to protect her so badly that she came all the way to this horrible place, it gives her the strength to fight back. You didn't think she was learning all those divine spells for nothing, did you? Her powers are so bright they send a beam of light through the fortress, alerting Emperor Joshua and the Duke only a short ride away. She manages to trap the sect leader in a sphere of light, which is kind of a shame. Is it just me, or was anyone else sort of hoping she'd burn him alive? She only managed to do all of this because of Ashtarte's support. Intending to return the favor, she's about to get them both out of there when the horribly injured Soterians come crawling out of the shadows begging her for medicine. Even though she doesn't approve of their mission anymore, it's not easy to ignore people in pain. As she's raising her hand to heal them, the Duke appears and stops her. In his eyes, a moment of sympathy will only cost more deaths in the long run. I'm not totally sure about the math on that one, but who cares? It's time to get the girls to safety fast, because the sect leader just broke free of the sphere. Time for Rion to show us what he's made of again. He draws his sword and immediately attacks, forcing the psycho cult leader on the defensive. The next hit strikes his defensive barrier and slices straight through, drawing blood. The sect leader drops to his knees, too weak to fight, ready to accept death from the Butcher of Elferman. When the sword is just millimeters from his neck, Chazael asks him to stop. If this monster is killed here and now, there'll be no controlling the Soterians. He'll just become a martyr, and the hatred between the Empire and their religion will never end. She suggests they take him as a prisoner instead. She's really changed her tune. It was only like 2 chapters ago that her whole purpose in life was killing this dude. But she's right. Revenge just prompts more revenge, and the cycle goes on. With just one word, she heals the injured Soterians and announces to them all that they've been lied to. They need to stop living for revenge and find a true purpose in life. She even healed the cult leader, and look at that, she healed herself as well. While all this dramatic self-discovery has been going on, Ashtarte was still inside the perfect reimagining of her childhood. She's watching the holy festival fireworks with Isaiah, but something still feels off. Nothing is quite living up to her expectations, and she can't shake the feeling that someone is missing. Someone who would be especially disappointed if he found out how much time she's been spending with Isaiah. Whoever could that be? In a sudden flash, she remembers how she and Isaiah parted in the real world. Then everything comes rushing back. Rion comes rushing back. When she opens her eyes, he's right there in front of her, smiling as if nothing ever happened. Damn, he's really got that leading man charm down to a T. We fast forward to 1 year later, where Isaiah has received a wedding invitation from a certain destined couple. Despite his best intentions, he just can't stomach it. And you can't exactly blame him. Besides, the couple of the century have plenty of other friends to celebrate with. Everyone from servants, nobles, and the imperial family themselves have gathered for the occasion. The emperor has also been busy since the incident with the Soterians. For saving her people and showing mercy to the sect leader, Chazael deserves punishment, and she's happy to take it. But Joshua has plans to make peace between the factions, hoping to make new laws that will protect the princess and her Soterians in the future. Working together, they'll usher in a new age for the Nohay's empire, one of peace and stability. As always, Rion is more focused on his girl than the politics of his people. Even now, he's busy asking Ashtarte if she likes the ring design. Isn't it a little late for that? What if she says no? Fortunately, he chose the perfect style, a lily of the valley. Not only did Luena give her a lily-of-the-valley hairpin that she treasures, but she also promised that one day Ashtarte would find happiness. So now she associates the flower design with true contentment. You've got to give it to Rion. He did better than most men to remember something like that. The church bells are ringing, which means it's time for this bride and groom to walk the aisle at last. Arm in arm, they walk toward their future and the long and happy lives they hope to lead together. At last, Ashtarte got her happy ending and a real kiss. Only took about 100 chapters. And that's the end of Ashtarte. Thank you guys so much for sticking along until the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. I know I did. If you're hungry for more romantic webtoon recaps, check out our channel. Like and subscribe for more content like this.